the hidden harbors where empires lost control. Tonight, before sleep begins to soften the edges of your thoughts, imagine that the year is somewhere around 1670. The Caribbean stretches endlessly beneath a sky crowded with stars that seem almost too bright to belong to our world. The moon hangs low over warm, black water, its silver reflection breaking apart with every slow-moving wave. Somewhere in the darkness, unseen birds call from dense mangrove forests. Palm leaves whisper whenever the trade winds decide to wander inland. The scent of salt drifts through the humid air, mixing with smoke from distant cooking fires and the heavy smell of tar coating the hulls of ships resting quietly in hidden coves. If you listen carefully, you might hear the gentle creak of wooden masts swaying with the tide. A loose rope taps rhythmically against a weathered spar. Somewhere farther down the shoreline, laughter rises from an open tavern before fading into the night. Someone has won a handful of silver coins. Someone else has lost everything they owned in a card game that lasted until dawn. Somewhere nearby, a blacksmith continues working despite the late hour, hammer striking glowing iron because another ship always needs another cannon repaired before sunrise. And somewhere beyond the safety of the harbor, a merchant captain sailing under the Spanish flag stares nervously into the darkness, hoping no unfamiliar sails emerge from the horizon. Because these waters belong to no one. Or perhaps more accurately, everyone believes they own them. That disagreement will shape centuries of history. This is the story of the pirate havens of the Caribbean, not merely the pirates themselves, but the remarkable ports that sheltered them. Places where criminals became businessmen, where runaway sailors reinvented themselves as captains, where escaped slaves found uncertain freedom beside hardened outlaws, and where entire towns quietly prospered from activities that every European king publicly condemned while privately encouraging whenever it proved convenient. History often remembers pirates as colorful individuals wearing tricorn hats, waving cutlasses, and shouting dramatic threats from the decks of ships. It is a wonderfully entertaining image, even if much of it belongs more to novels than reality. The truth is both less glamorous and far more fascinating. Pirates required something every sailor requires. A place to sleep. A place to repair ships. Fresh water. Food. Gunpowder. Rum. Information. Friends. Someone willing to buy stolen sugar without asking too many awkward questions. Even the fiercest sea raider eventually needed dry land. And that is where our story truly begins. Long before famous names like Blackbeard, Henry Morgan, or Calico Jack entered popular imagination, the Caribbean itself had already become one of the most valuable places on Earth. It is difficult today to appreciate just how astonishing these islands appeared to Europeans arriving during the 15th and 16th centuries. Endless forests covered mountains that rose dramatically above turquoise seas. Rivers flowed through fertile valleys where unfamiliar birds flashed brilliant colors among giant tropical trees. Strange fruits grew in abundance. Coral reefs surrounded islands like natural fortifications built by nature itself. Unfortunately, wherever extraordinary wealth appeared, European empires were rarely far behind. Spain arrived first. After Christopher Columbus crossed the Atlantic in 1492, Spain quickly claimed enormous portions of the Americas. Their explorers established settlements across Hispaniola, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, and eventually much of mainland Central and South America. For a while, no one seriously challenged them. Spanish treasure fleets began carrying unimaginable fortunes back across the Atlantic. Gold from Mexico, silver from Peru, emeralds from Colombia, sugar from Caribbean plantations, tobacco, indigo, precious woods, exotic spices gathered through expanding colonial networks. Every year, fleets worth fortunes sailed toward Europe. And every king watching from London, Paris, or Amsterdam noticed. Because of course they did. Imagine watching your neighbor discover a mountain made entirely of silver. You would probably become interested rather quickly. England became interested. France became interested. The Dutch Republic became very interested. None of these kingdoms accepted Spain's claim that simply planting a flag entitled one nation to control nearly an entire hemisphere. Diplomatic arguments filled royal courts, but diplomacy rarely settled disputes worth billions in modern wealth. Cannons usually handled the negotiations instead. The Caribbean became less like a peaceful sea and more like an enormous chessboard where every island mattered. Tiny rocky outcrops suddenly became strategic naval stations. Small natural harbors became military prizes. Remote coves transformed into supply depots. Maps were redrawn almost yearly as one empire captured territory from another. Some islands changed hands so frequently that even local residents occasionally struggled to remember whose taxes they were supposedly paying. Not that everyone bothered paying them. Far from Europe, imperial authority often became surprisingly flexible. Communication across the Atlantic required months. Orders sent from Madrid might arrive long after circumstances had changed completely. Governors appointed by distant monarchs often found themselves making decisions independently because there simply wasn't time to ask permission. Sometimes they obeyed royal instructions. Sometimes they politely ignored them. Sometimes they quietly accepted bribes that solved immediate financial problems while creating spectacular diplomatic disasters several years later. Life on the frontier rewarded practicality over strict obedience. Into this uncertain world came thousands of sailors whose ambitions exceeded the opportunities available back home. Some sought honest fortunes. Others escaped poverty. Many fled debts. Some deserted naval service after enduring years of brutal discipline. Merchant ships during the 17th century offered little comfort. Food spoiled quickly beneath tropical heat. Fresh water became stagnant after weeks inside wooden barrels. Disease spread through cramped quarters with terrifying efficiency. Captains maintained order using whips, ropes, and punishments that modern audiences would rightly consider horrifying. A sailor's life could be astonishingly difficult. Pay arrived late. Sometimes it never arrived at all. Ship owners occasionally declared bankruptcy immediately after voyages ended, leaving exhausted crews with nothing except worn clothing and promises that had suddenly become worthless. One begins to understand why certain sailors looked at piracy with increasing curiosity. Not because it was easy. It certainly wasn't. Pirates died violently with alarming regularity. But pirate crews usually shared captured wealth according to agreed rules rather than allowing wealthy investors safely sitting in London to collect nearly everything. For men who had spent years being exploited aboard merchant vessels, that sounded almost revolutionary. Still, pirates could not survive alone upon the sea. Ships eventually leaked. Masts cracked. Sails tore. Powder ran low. Food disappeared. Fresh water became undrinkable. Every successful pirate voyage eventually required a return to land, which created an interesting problem. Most respectable ports preferred not welcoming notorious criminals carrying suspicious cargo. Again, entirely understandable. Yet the Caribbean contained countless isolated bays, hidden rivers, mangrove swamps, and lightly governed islands where practical considerations often outweighed moral ones. A merchant who refused to purchase stolen sugar might discover his competitors growing unexpectedly wealthy. A governor who expelled every pirate might also lose valuable defenders against rival empires. A tavern owner who questioned every customer's occupation would soon have remarkably few customers. Economics possesses an extraordinary talent for silencing ethical objections, especially when silver changes hands. The geography of the Caribbean almost seemed designed for secrecy. Thousands of islands scatter across warm seas like stepping stones stretching between North and South America. Some rise dramatically from the ocean, crowned with mountains wrapped in rainforest. Others barely lift themselves above the waves, surrounded by reefs capable of destroying unfamiliar ships within minutes. Navigating these waters demanded local knowledge. Experienced sailors memorized hidden channels invisible to outsiders. Pirates often possessed precisely that expertise. A Spanish treasure galleon might dominate open water with dozens of heavy cannons, but inside narrow passages surrounded by coral reefs, massive warships became clumsy giants. Smaller vessels slipped through places impossible for larger fleets to follow. Knowledge became as valuable as gunpowder, perhaps even more valuable. Many pirate captains knew every sheltered inlet between Cuba and the Bahamas. They understood seasonal winds. They recognized currents invisible to inexperienced navigators. They could disappear behind islands while pursuing warships searched the wrong coastline entirely. Sometimes the greatest weapon wasn't firepower. It was simply knowing where to hide. One island would become especially important: Hispaniola. Today it is shared between Haiti and the Dominican Republic, but during our story it represented one of the largest and most contested islands in the Caribbean. Spain claimed it early, yet Spain never fully controlled every corner. The western regions remained sparsely populated compared to the wealthier eastern settlements. Dense forests, rugged hills, and isolated coastlines created perfect conditions for people who preferred remaining unnoticed. French hunters began settling there during the early 17th century. These men became known as boucaniers. Their name came from the wooden frames they used to smoke meat over slow fires, a method learned from indigenous peoples. The smoked beef supplied passing ships with preserved food capable of surviving long voyages. At first glance, nothing about smoking meat sounds particularly connected to piracy. History enjoys surprising us. The hunters sold food to anyone willing to pay. Spanish, French, Dutch, English, sometimes all four within the same month. Politics mattered less than survival. When Spanish authorities attempted to expel these settlers, the hunters did not quietly disappear. Instead, many moved to a nearby rocky island separated from Hispaniola by a narrow channel. Its name was Tortuga. The island looked almost insignificant. Steep cliffs protected much of its coastline. Only a handful of suitable anchorages existed. Fresh water remained limited. The land itself hardly resembled paradise. Yet from a strategic perspective, Tortuga proved nearly perfect. Ships approaching from the windward passage could be observed long before arriving. Natural defenses made invasion difficult. Nearby hunting grounds supplied food. Dense forests provided timber for repairs. Most importantly, Spain never fully secured permanent control. Into this small island drifted an extraordinary mixture of humanity. French settlers seeking opportunity, English adventurers escaping debt, Dutch merchants searching profit, runaway sailors, escaped indentured servants, former soldiers, religious refugees, professional smugglers, future pirates, people whose pasts were best left unexplored. Few asked inconvenient questions. Everyone understood the unwritten rule. Your previous life remained your own business. If you arrived willing to work or fight, you might find a place. During daylight, the settlement appeared almost ordinary. Fishing boats came and went. Hunters carried smoked meat toward warehouses. Carpenters repaired damaged docks. Children chased chickens through dusty streets. Women baked bread inside small wooden homes. Merchants argued endlessly over prices. Ordinary life persisted despite extraordinary neighbors. Night transformed everything. Lanterns glowed from tavern windows. Music drifted across the harbor. Captains quietly negotiated future expeditions over mugs of rum. Maps unfolded across rough tables stained by spilled drinks. Someone always claimed knowledge of an undefended Spanish merchantman expected within weeks. Someone always insisted hidden treasure lay buried upon some forgotten quay. Most stories proved wildly exaggerated. But every now and then, one turned out to be true. Those moments changed fortunes. The taverns themselves became information exchanges as valuable as any government intelligence office. A drunken sailor revealed cargo schedules. A merchant complained about Spanish patrols. A carpenter mentioned repairing unusually damaged hulls. A fisherman noticed unfamiliar ships anchored beyond nearby reefs. Every conversation contained fragments. Pirates excelled at assembling those fragments into opportunity. Intelligence gathering sounded far more respectable than eavesdropping. The result, however, remained remarkably effective. Governors noticed. European governments noticed. Merchants noticed. Everyone gradually realized these obscure harbors represented something larger than isolated criminal hideouts. They were becoming alternative economies. Parallel societies. Places where imperial law weakened enough for entirely different rules to emerge. Rules often written not by kings, but by necessity. The age of the pirate haven had quietly begun. No grand declaration announced its arrival. No king proclaimed the founding of these strange communities. No ceremony marked their birth. Instead, they grew naturally, almost invisibly, wherever geography, commerce, desperation, and ambition happened to meet beneath Caribbean skies. The sea cared very little about legality. The wind never asked whether a ship sailed under royal commission or black flag. Rain fell equally upon honest merchants and ruthless corsairs. Every sunrise illuminated both churches and taverns. Every sunset concealed both fishermen and fugitives. Perhaps that explains why the Caribbean produced such extraordinary stories. Not because good battled evil. History is rarely so simple. Instead, countless ordinary people navigated impossible choices inside a world where yesterday's criminal might become tomorrow's governor, where today's privateer could become next year's pirate, and where loyalty often lasted only until someone offered slightly better terms. As the warm breeze continues drifting across Tortuga's sleeping harbor, the lanterns slowly extinguish one by one. Ships rock gently against their moorings. Some will depart before dawn. Some will never return. Others will come back unimaginably wealthy, or frighteningly empty. And somewhere, just beyond the edge of moonlight, more sails are already approaching. They carry hunters, runaways, merchants, soldiers, dreamers, outlaws. None of them yet understand that they are sailing toward the birthplace of one of history's most remarkable and misunderstood communities. The hidden ports of the Caribbean are only beginning to awaken. Hunters, outcasts, and the birth of the buccaneers. Morning arrives slowly over Hispaniola, not with the dramatic blaze of a theatrical sunrise, but with a gradual softening of darkness. The stars surrender one by one until only the brightest remain. Mist clings to the valleys where rivers wind toward the sea. Tropical birds begin their daily arguments high in the trees, sounding far louder than creatures of their size have any right to be. Somewhere in the forest, unseen monkeys rustle through branches while insects continue the endless chorus they started long before midnight. The Caribbean is awake again. And long before pirates became the masters of these waters, another kind of frontier life was already unfolding beneath the shade of these forests. If pirate havens had founders, they were probably not pirates at all. They were hunters. That may seem an odd beginning for one of history's most famous maritime cultures. After all, when people imagine piracy, they picture black flags snapping in the wind, broadside cannon fire, and daring escapes across the open sea. Not men quietly stalking wild cattle through dense jungle with heavy muskets slung across their shoulders. Yet history has an amusing habit of beginning in places no one expects. To understand the pirate havens, we must first leave the coastline behind and step inland. The forests of Hispaniola during the early 17th century were unlike anything most Europeans had ever known. Towering mahogany and ceiba trees formed an immense green canopy overhead. Vines hung like thick ropes between branches. Orchids bloomed in brilliant colors. Ferns covered the ground wherever sunlight managed to reach it. The air itself seemed alive. It smelled of damp earth, flowering plants, wood smoke, and rain that might arrive at any moment. It was beautiful. It was exhausting. Within an hour of walking, clothing clung to the skin with sweat. Mosquitoes appeared from nowhere, apparently offended by anyone attempting to enjoy the scenery. Boots sank into muddy trails. Every unfamiliar sound hinted at an unseen animal just beyond the trees. Europeans quickly discovered that tropical paradise could be surprisingly uncomfortable. Still, the forest held extraordinary wealth. Not buried treasure. Not yet. Food. The Spanish had introduced cattle and pigs decades earlier to supply their growing colonies. Over time, many escaped into the wilderness. With few natural predators, their numbers exploded. By the early 1600s, enormous herds of wild cattle wandered freely across parts of Hispaniola. To ambitious hunters, these animals represented opportunity. French settlers, many arriving from Normandy and Brittany, began establishing rough camps near the hunting grounds. Some came willingly, hoping to escape poverty in Europe. Others had fewer choices. A few had deserted ships. Some fled creditors. Others simply vanished from ordinary society and reappeared in the Caribbean under conveniently vague new identities. Life offered second chances on the frontier, mostly because no one kept particularly accurate records. These hunters became known as the boucaniers. The name came from the boucan, a wooden rack built over slow-burning fires. Meat placed upon these racks smoked gently for days, preserving it against the relentless Caribbean heat. Fresh beef spoiled quickly. Smoked beef could cross oceans. Passing ships eagerly purchased it. Spanish vessels bought it. Dutch traders bought it. English captains bought it. French merchants certainly bought it. Money rarely cared about politics. The boucaniers soon developed a reputation for remarkable independence. They lived in crude wooden shelters roofed with palm leaves. Their clothing became patched and faded from constant exposure to sun and rain. Leather hats protected them from tropical downpours. Muskets accompanied them almost everywhere. Their daily routine followed rhythms dictated not by clocks, but by nature. They checked powder horns, sharpened knives, packed dried food, filled water containers, then disappeared into forests where they might remain for several days. The work demanded patience. Wild cattle were powerful animals capable of killing careless hunters. The boucaniers learned to move quietly, to read tracks, to understand animal behavior, to survive in wilderness where mistakes carried immediate consequences. These skills would later prove unexpectedly useful aboard pirate ships. A hunter accustomed to waiting silently for the perfect moment already understood one of history's oldest military lessons. Returning to camp after a successful hunt began another laborious process. Animals were butchered carefully. Meat was sliced into long strips. The strips were arranged across the wooden boucan. Small fires burned beneath, producing more smoke than flame. For days, someone watched continuously. Too much heat ruined everything. Too little accomplished nothing. The process required experience. Eventually, the meat darkened into tough, smoky provisions capable of surviving long voyages at sea. The smell became part of everyday life. Wood smoke drifted constantly above the camps. It mixed with leather, animal hides, sweat, and tropical vegetation into a scent unique to the Caribbean frontier. Visitors reportedly recognized a hunter's settlement long before seeing it. They simply followed the smell. Life remained difficult. Food was plain. Comforts were few. Diseases lingered. Injuries healed slowly. Yet many hunters preferred this harsh independence to the rigid hierarchies they had escaped in Europe. No nobleman collected rent. No tax collector appeared every month. No landlord dictated how they should live. Freedom carried hardships. But it was still freedom. Or at least it felt that way. Unfortunately, Spanish authorities viewed matters rather differently. From Madrid's perspective, these hunters represented illegal settlers occupying Spanish territory. That was unacceptable. Spain still believed the Caribbean belonged entirely to them. Technically, according to treaties signed decades earlier, they possessed convincing legal arguments. Reality, however, seldom obeyed paperwork. The Caribbean had become too vast, too complicated, too populated. Spanish governors periodically organized military expeditions against the hunters. Soldiers burned camps, destroyed supplies, captured settlers. Sometimes executions followed. Sometimes prisoners were transported elsewhere. Sometimes everyone simply disappeared into the forests before soldiers arrived. Dense jungle favored those who knew it best. The hunters adapted. They abandoned permanent settlements, built hidden camps, established lookout systems, trusted one another more than distant governments. Gradually, they became less like isolated individuals and more like communities. Communities united by necessity. Necessity has always been an excellent teacher, especially when survival depends upon cooperation. Spanish pressure produced an unexpected consequence. Rather than eliminating the hunters, it pushed many toward the coast, and eventually, toward the sea. Imagine living through repeated attacks, each time rebuilding your home, each time losing tools, livestock, perhaps friends. Eventually, another way of earning a living begins to appear attractive. Ships constantly passed along nearby waters. Merchants always needed experienced marksmen. Privateering offered legal opportunities to attack enemy vessels during wartime. Smuggling proved remarkably profitable. Gradually, some hunters accepted temporary work aboard ships. A hunting trip lasting weeks became a voyage lasting months. Skills transferred surprisingly well. A man capable of tracking cattle through dense forest could certainly track merchant ships across familiar waters. Accurate shooting remained valuable. Knowledge of hidden rivers proved invaluable. Survival instincts translated perfectly. One voyage led to another. Some returned to hunting. Others never did. The sea had claimed them. European wars accelerated the transformation. England fought Spain. France fought Spain. The Dutch fought Spain. Sometimes England fought France, while both simultaneously opposed Spain somewhere else. European diplomacy resembled an especially confusing card game where alliances changed every few years. The Caribbean became one enormous battlefield. Governments lacked sufficient naval forces to patrol every island. Instead, they issued letters of marque. These documents authorized private captains to attack enemy shipping legally. The distinction between privateer and pirate often depended entirely upon whose government issued the paperwork. One captain became a celebrated patriot in London. The same man appeared as a notorious pirate in Madrid. Perspective mattered. Quite a lot. The buccaneers fit naturally into this uncertain world. They already distrusted Spanish authority. They knew local geography. They possessed military experience. Many gladly accepted commissions against Spain whenever opportunities appeared. Sometimes they sailed under French flags. Sometimes English. Occasionally Dutch. Nationality remained surprisingly flexible on the frontier. Profit proved remarkably persuasive. As years passed, the lines separating hunter from sailor slowly blurred. Returning crews brought stories. Stories of captured ships laden with sugar. Stories of silver coins stacked inside wooden chests. Stories of silk, spices, wine, and weapons. Most stories grew considerably more impressive after several cups of rum. That tradition has survived remarkably well throughout history. Still, enough proved true to inspire others. Young hunters listened around evening fires. They imagined fortunes waiting beyond the horizon. The forest suddenly seemed smaller. The sea called. Not everyone answered. Some remained hunters their entire lives. Others became farmers. A few established families. Yet increasing numbers chose ships instead of forests. The transformation happened so gradually that few noticed it at first. The buccaneers had begun evolving into buccaneers. Today those words often mean the same thing. Originally, they described different stages of the same remarkable community. Hunters became raiders. Raiders became sailors. Sailors became pirates. Not because they planned this future, because history quietly nudged them toward it. Meanwhile, another community quietly emerged alongside them. Escaped servants. European colonies relied heavily upon indentured labor during the 17th century. Thousands of poor Europeans signed contracts promising several years of work in exchange for passage across the Atlantic. The promises rarely matched reality. Plantation labor proved brutal. Heat overwhelmed newcomers. Diseases spread rapidly. Punishments remained harsh. Some workers completed their contracts. Others simply ran away. Where could fugitives disappear? Into forests. Toward hunter camps. Eventually into pirate settlements. There, a person's past often mattered less than useful skills. Could you repair sails? Welcome aboard. Could you cook? Excellent. Could you load cannons? Even better. Communities built upon survival rarely rejected capable people. At least not immediately. Around evening campfires, strange friendships formed. Former soldiers shared meals with escaped servants. Hunters traded stories with sailors. Frenchmen learned English curses. Englishmen picked up French insults. Dutch merchants drank alongside everyone. Language itself became wonderfully chaotic. Conversations blended words from half a dozen nations. Misunderstandings undoubtedly occurred, usually followed by laughter, occasionally by fist fights, sometimes both. By now, the Spanish had begun noticing something deeply troubling. Their attempts to eliminate these settlements produced stronger, more organized enemies. Every destroyed camp encouraged greater cooperation. Every military expedition taught valuable lessons. Every survivor became more determined. Force alone no longer solved the problem. Worse still, rival European powers quietly supported these frontier communities whenever doing so weakened Spain. French governors overlooked suspicious activities. English officials accepted conveniently cheap cargo. Dutch merchants purchased goods with remarkable enthusiasm. Officially, everyone condemned piracy. Unofficially, business flourished. Because kingdoms, much like ordinary people, occasionally discovered principles became wonderfully flexible whenever profits appeared. And so, Beneath Caribbean stars, among smoking meat racks and forest trails, beside rivers winding toward hidden harbors, something entirely unexpected was taking shape. Not merely piracy, an entirely new society. A frontier culture where nationality mattered less than loyalty, where ability outweighed birth, where survival demanded cooperation between people who, back in Europe, might never have spoken to one another. The forests had given birth to hunters. The hunters had become buccaneers. Soon, the buccaneers would discover an island that would change everything. A rocky place called Tortuga, a harbor small enough to overlook on most maps. A settlement so unlikely that no European monarch could have imagined it becoming the unofficial capital of piracy. Yet history often hides its greatest turning points in the smallest places. And as another warm Caribbean evening settles over Hispaniola, smoke once again rises through the trees from dozens of slow-burning boucans. The hunters prepare tomorrow's food. They laugh around crackling fires. They sharpen knives worn smooth by years of work. Some glance toward the distant sea where tiny white sails drift across the horizon. Perhaps they wonder what lies beyond. Perhaps they already know. Either way, the forests are beginning to lose their children. The hidden ports of the Caribbean are waiting. Tortuga, the island that should never have changed history. Night settles gently over the narrow channel between Hispaniola and Tortuga. The sea is unusually calm this evening. Moonlight spreads across the water like polished silver, interrupted only by the slow wake of a fishing canoe gliding toward shore. Somewhere along the cliffs, seabirds have tucked themselves into rocky ledges, leaving only the steady rhythm of waves meeting stone. Warm trade winds drift through the palms carrying the scents of salt, damp earth, tobacco smoke, and roasting meat. It is difficult to imagine that this quiet little island will soon become one of the most infamous places in the Atlantic. After all, Tortuga is not particularly impressive. It is not especially large. It possesses no vast rivers rich with gold, no towering cities, no magnificent cathedrals, no royal palace overlooking the sea. Even its name, Tortuga, meaning turtle, sounds almost peaceful. Yet history has a peculiar affection for places that appear unimportant. Sometimes the smallest island becomes the center of an empire's greatest headache. Sometimes a forgotten harbor changes the course of oceans. And sometimes a place too insignificant to conquer becomes impossible to control. That was Tortuga. If you sailed toward the island during the early 17th century, the first thing you would notice would not be the settlement itself. It would be the cliffs. Much of Tortuga rises sharply from the Caribbean Sea. Great walls of dark rock stand watch over the coastline, making landings dangerous except at a handful of natural anchorages. Waves crash endlessly against limestone, carving sea caves where only seabirds and curious seals venture. To an invading fleet, these cliffs were frustrating. To people who wished not to be invaded, they were perfect. The safest harbor rested along the southern coast. Here the water deepened quickly, allowing ocean-going ships to anchor close enough to shore for easy unloading. Hills overlooked the bay, offering clear views of approaching vessels many miles away. Nothing moved across the sea unnoticed. Long before telescopes became common, sharp-eyed lookouts stationed on the heights served as the island's earliest warning system. One man with good eyesight could change everyone's day. If friendly sails appeared, preparations began for trade. If Spanish sails appeared, preparations became considerably louder. By the 1630s, the first permanent settlement had begun to take shape around this harbor. Calling it a town might be generous. Calling it organized would be optimistic. Wooden buildings lined muddy streets that turned into rivers after tropical rainstorms. Roofs of palm leaves or rough shingles offered uneven protection against the weather. Chickens wandered wherever they pleased, apparently convinced they owned the island. To be fair, they often behaved more confidently than some of the residents. The docks bustled from sunrise until well after dark. Fishing boats arrived carrying fresh catches. Merchant vessels unloaded flour, cloth, wine, iron tools, and gunpowder. Small coastal craft slipped in quietly with cargoes whose origins were best left politely unexplored. Questions remained wonderfully unpopular. A crate labeled sugar rarely inspired further investigation, even if someone suspected the sugar had belonged to another merchant only 3 days earlier. Because of course it had. The harbor itself became a floating neighborhood. Ships anchored so closely together that crews could shout conversations from one deck to another. Sailcloth fluttered in the breeze like enormous white birds. Ropes creaked continuously. Water slapped gently against wooden hulls weathered by years of salt and storms. Every vessel seemed to carry a different accent. French captains argued over prices. English sailors complained about everything. Dutch merchants calmly calculated profits. Spanish prisoners occasionally sat glumly beneath armed guards, wondering how exactly their perfectly ordinary voyage had become so remarkably complicated. The taverns noticed none of these distinctions. Money sounded the same in every language. Step inside one of Tortuga's drinking houses, and the world became warmer, louder, and infinitely more chaotic. Candles flickered against smoke-darkened walls. Wooden tables leaned at alarming angles. The floor remained permanently sticky with spilled ale, rum, and whatever else customers had accidentally, or deliberately, poured onto it. The smell struck newcomers immediately. Rum, pipe tobacco, sweat, sea salt, wet wool, cooked pork, tar, smoke, all blended into an aroma that could only belong to a busy Caribbean port. Musicians occasionally played fiddles or simple flutes, sometimes remarkably well, sometimes with enthusiasm greatly exceeding talent. Fortunately, rum possesses a wonderful ability to improve musical appreciation. Here, information flowed more freely than alcohol. News arrived daily. Spanish treasure fleets had sailed from Havana. An English governor needed experienced privateers. A Dutch merchant sought armed escorts. French settlers required muskets. A hurricane had destroyed several plantations. Disease had struck another colony. A wealthy merchant captain intended to sail alone. That final piece of information usually attracted considerable attention. Many fortunes began as overheard conversations inside noisy taverns. No secret remained secret for long, at least not after the third cup. Life in Tortuga followed rhythms unlike those of European cities. The island possessed no grand aristocracy, no ancient noble families, few elaborate traditions. People judged newcomers less by family name than by usefulness. Could you repair sails? Excellent. Could you build houses? Welcome. Could you forge nails? You would never lack employment. Could you fight? That skill, unfortunately, proved equally valuable. Violence remained a constant possibility. Arguments over gambling debts erupted into fistfights. Drunken insults occasionally escalated toward pistols or swords. Yet despite the chaos, or perhaps because everyone understood the dangers, a peculiar code of practical respect often emerged. A skilled carpenter was worth protecting. An experienced surgeon became priceless. A talented shipwright might save an entire expedition. Communities surviving on the edge of empire learned quickly that every useful person mattered, especially on a small island. Among the most important residents were the merchants. Not glamorous merchants wearing velvet coats in elegant counting houses. These were frontier traders. Practical people. Adaptable people. People possessing an extraordinary ability to avoid asking inconvenient questions. Suppose a weather-beaten captain arrived with 50 barrels of sugar. No documentation. No convincing explanation. Only an eager desire to sell quickly for silver. An ordinary European port might investigate. Tortuga negotiated the price. The merchants understood something fundamental about frontier economics. If they refused suspicious cargo, another trader would gladly purchase it. Business rewarded flexibility. Morality occasionally took extended holidays. The island soon developed workshops capable of supporting an expanding maritime community. Blacksmiths hammered anchors, chains, nails, and horseshoes from dawn until sunset. Coopers assembled barrels essential for storing food, water, gunpowder, and rum. Without barrels, long voyages became impossible. History owes far more to skilled coopers than most people realize. Shipwrights repaired damaged hulls. Sailmakers patched canvas torn by storms. Rope makers twisted endless lengths of hemp. Every trade connected directly to the sea. A pirate vessel returning from months at sea resembled an exhausted traveler finally reaching home. The hull leaked. The sails hung in tatters. Rigging frayed. Cannons required cleaning. Fresh food had disappeared weeks earlier. Water tasted vaguely of wood, algae, and disappointment. The crew looked little better. Sunburned, bearded, thin, salt permanently embedded into clothing. They needed everything. Tortuga provided it. Slowly, almost accidentally, the island transformed into something resembling an enormous service station for maritime adventurers, only with considerably more rum and substantially more cannonballs. One of the settlement's greatest advantages lay beyond the harbor itself. Fresh water. Ships crossing oceans consumed astonishing quantities. Every sailor required several liters daily merely to survive. Without reliable springs, no harbor could become important. Fortunately, Tortuga possessed enough streams flowing from its hills to sustain a growing population. Crews filled barrels while resting ashore. Laundry washed away months of accumulated salt. Children splashed in shallow pools. Simple comforts became luxuries after long voyages. Fresh fruit also mattered enormously. Modern travelers think little of oranges, lemons, and limes. 17th century sailors viewed them almost as medicine. Months at sea without fresh produce often resulted in scurvy, a disease so cruel it caused gums to bleed, wounds to reopen, teeth to loosen, and strength to disappear. The people of Tortuga did not yet understand vitamins. They only noticed that fresh fruit somehow kept sailors healthier. Sometimes experience arrives long before scientific explanation. The surrounding forests supplied timber. This proved invaluable. Ships were living machines built entirely from wood. Wood rotted. Wood cracked. Wood attracted insects. Repairs never truly ended. Entire sections of damaged vessels might be replaced while anchored in the harbor. Great trees from Tortuga's hills gradually became masts sailing across oceans. Meanwhile, the island's population continued changing. French settlers remained numerous. English adventurers arrived regularly. Dutch traders visited frequently. Escaped servants. Former soldiers. Hunters from Hispaniola. African sailors. Free black craftsmen. Indigenous guides familiar with surrounding waters. The Caribbean became one of the earliest truly international frontiers. Not because people necessarily desired cultural diversity. Because survival encouraged cooperation. The sea treated everyone equally. Storms respected no nationality. Hurricanes never paused to inspect passports. Among this mixture of humanity emerged countless stories never recorded in official histories. A Scottish shipwright teaching a French apprentice. A Dutch merchant marrying the daughter of an English sailor. A former Spanish prisoner deciding not to return home at all. Children growing up speaking several languages without considering it unusual. History often remembers famous captains. It forgets ordinary families. Yet these families built the communities that allowed pirate havens to flourish. Tortuga also developed another unexpected profession. Spies. Not official agents wearing disguises. Ordinary dock workers. Tavern keepers. Market vendors. People who noticed everything. Who had arrived. Which ships carried heavy cargo. Which captains seemed unusually wealthy. Who purchased large quantities of gunpowder. Information possessed extraordinary value. Governors paid for it. Merchants paid for it. Pirates certainly paid for it. Sometimes a single whispered conversation earned more silver than weeks of honest labor. Trust became precious and rare. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Tortuga was not its lawlessness. Contrary to popular imagination, complete chaos rarely produces successful communities. Trade requires some degree of stability. Ships need confidence that repairs will actually be completed. Merchants expect payment. Residents prefer waking without discovering their homes mysteriously missing. Even pirate havens required rules. Not many, but enough. Disputes reached local officials. Property disagreements received judgments. Thefts from fellow residents often carried punishment. Violence inside the settlement itself remained surprisingly discouraged. A town constantly destroying itself could hardly prosper. The irony delighted observers. Some of history's most notorious outlaws demanded order at home, because disorder proved bad for business. As years passed, Tortuga's reputation spread across the Atlantic. For desperate sailors, it became a place of opportunity. For merchants, a profitable, if morally complicated marketplace. For European governors, an increasingly useful ally against Spain. For Spanish officials, it became an obsession. Reports reaching Havana and Madrid described the island with growing alarm. Pirates sheltered there. Privateers recruited there. Contraband flowed through its harbor. Spanish shipping suffered repeated attacks. Again and again military expeditions were proposed. Again and again they struggled. The island's natural defenses helped. Its determined residents helped even more. Every failed Spanish attack strengthened Tortuga's legend. The impossible little island continued surviving, growing, prospering, defying expectations. Somewhere in the taverns, young sailors listened wide-eyed to veterans describing recent voyages. Some dreamed of becoming captains. Some merely hoped to earn enough silver to retire comfortably. A surprisingly sensible ambition. Very few achieved it. The sea possessed an unfortunate habit of interrupting retirement plans. Still, dreams remained abundant. As midnight deepens once again over the harbor, lanterns sway gently aboard anchored ships. The blacksmith's forge has finally gone quiet. Music drifts faintly from one last tavern refusing to close. Beyond the protective cliffs, the Caribbean stretches into darkness. Invisible merchant ships continue their slow journeys between colonies. Invisible storms gather beyond the horizon. Invisible fortunes wait to be seized. Tortuga has become far more than a lonely island. It is becoming the beating heart of an entirely new world. A world where kings issue commands that rarely arrive in time. Where fortunes change with the wind. Where yesterday's hunter becomes tomorrow's captain. And where one remarkable governor is about to transform this rough, frontier settlement into the greatest pirate haven the Caribbean has ever known. The Iron Governor of Tortuga. The dawn breeze arrives first. Before the sun has climbed over the eastern horizon, before the harbor begins its familiar chorus of hammering shipwrights and shouting merchants, the wind slips quietly through the palms and over the limestone cliffs. It carries the coolness of the night for just a few precious minutes before the tropical heat claims another day. Down in the harbor, dozens of ships rise and fall almost imperceptibly with the tide. A French brig rests beside an English sloop. A Dutch merchant vessel unloads barrels of flour, while a weather-beaten privateer quietly replaces damaged rigging nearby. Fishermen paddle toward the reefs before sunrise, hoping to return before the afternoon squalls arrive. Smoke begins rising from cook fires. Roosters announce themselves with tremendous confidence, despite being spectacularly inaccurate about the exact time. Life on Tortuga begins again. Yet beneath this ordinary morning lies an extraordinary problem. The island is growing too quickly. Every month brings more ships, more hunters, more sailors, more merchants, more fugitives, more men who insist they are merely between occupations, despite carrying 3 pistols and a suspicious quantity of Spanish silver. Success creates its own difficulties. The muddy streets become crowded. Fresh water must be carefully managed. Food prices rise. Arguments become more frequent. And perhaps most importantly, Spain is paying very close attention. The Spanish Empire has tolerated this troublesome little island for longer than many officials consider acceptable. Reports continue arriving in Havana describing raids launched from Tortuga, captured merchantmen, destroyed plantations, missing cargoes, increasing numbers of privateers operating from what should, according to Spanish maps, be Spanish territory. Something must be done. At least, that is the opinion in Madrid. Unfortunately for Madrid, the Caribbean has always possessed an inconvenient habit of ignoring European expectations. Distance changes everything. A royal command written in Spain must cross thousands of miles of ocean. Storms delay ships. Pirates intercept mail. Captains become ill. Governors interpret instructions rather creatively. By the time orders finally arrive, circumstances have often changed completely. The Atlantic Ocean does not encourage efficient administration. Into this uncertain world steps one of the most remarkable figures in Caribbean history, a man named François Levasseur. History remembers him differently depending on who tells the story. To the French, he was an engineer, a capable administrator, perhaps even a visionary. To many Spanish officials, he was little better than an architect employed by the devil himself. Considering everything that followed, one can understand both opinions. Levasseur arrived during the early 1640s. At first glance, he hardly resembled the kind of dramatic pirate captain celebrated in later legends. He was not famous for sword fighting. He was not known for daring sea battles. He did not spend evenings swaggering through taverns challenging strangers to duels. Instead, he built things remarkably well. If pirate history has taught us anything so far, it is that successful piracy depends surprisingly little upon dramatic sword fights. It depends far more upon logistics, repairs, food, fresh water, safe harbors, and fortifications, especially fortifications. Levasseur immediately recognized something everyone else had overlooked. Tortuga did not merely require brave defenders. It required walls. The island already possessed magnificent natural cliffs. Now it would gain something equally formidable: a fortress. High above the harbor rose a rocky hill commanding nearly every approach from the sea. From here, cannons could dominate the entrance to the anchorage. Enemy ships would have no choice but to sail directly beneath the guns. It was almost unfair. Almost. Construction began almost immediately. Stone was cut from nearby quarries. Timber arrived from surrounding forests. Laborers hauled enormous blocks uphill beneath the relentless Caribbean sun. It was exhausting work. The tropical heat offered little mercy. Mosquitoes swarmed constantly. Sudden afternoon rainstorms transformed dusty paths into slippery rivers of mud. Still, the work continued. Day after day, week after week. Gradually, the fortress emerged. Thick stone walls rose above the cliffs. Gun platforms overlooked the sea. Storage rooms held powder and supplies. Barracks sheltered soldiers. Lookout positions offered breathtaking views stretching for miles across open water. Visitors approaching by ship immediately understood the message. This island intended to stay exactly where it was. One story, repeated by later writers, claimed that Levasseur even installed enormous iron chains capable of blocking the harbor entrance. Whether entirely true or somewhat exaggerated remains uncertain. History occasionally enjoys improving a perfectly good story. Regardless, the harbor became one of the strongest defensive positions in the Caribbean. Spanish commanders noticed, and they were not pleased. Imagine commanding an invasion fleet. Your ships finally approach Tortuga after weeks at sea. The island appears ahead. Everything seems encouraging. Then, cannons begin firing from hundreds of feet above your ships. Great clouds of white smoke billow from the cliffs. Iron cannonballs crash into the sea around your vessels. Some strike hulls with horrifying force. Others smash masts into splintered ruins. Returning fire proves frustratingly ineffective. Shooting uphill from rolling ships toward elevated stone walls is considerably more difficult than dramatic paintings usually suggest. The fortress possessed nearly every advantage: height, cover, visibility, preparation. Sometimes geography wins battles before the first cannon fires. Spanish assaults repeatedly discovered this uncomfortable truth. Meanwhile, everyday life continued expanding beneath the protection of Levasseur's guns. The governor encouraged settlement. Farmers cleared nearby land. Fruit orchards appeared. Vegetable gardens multiplied. Livestock grazed where forests had once stood. A pirate haven could not survive on stolen goods alone. Even pirates required fresh vegetables eventually, though they probably complained about eating them. The harbor grew busier every season. Shipwrights expanded their workshops. Blacksmiths rarely rested. Carpenters repaired docks almost continuously. The sound of hammers striking wood became as familiar as waves against the shore. A visitor walking through Tortuga during these years might notice something surprising. The settlement felt hopeful. Certainly rough. Certainly dangerous. But hopeful. Families appeared. Children played in the streets. Markets sold ordinary household goods alongside decidedly less ordinary merchandise. Laundry fluttered between wooden houses. Cats hunted rats along the waterfront with admirable dedication. Life gradually resembled a permanent town rather than a temporary camp. That permanence mattered enormously. People invest differently when they believe they are staying. They build stronger houses, plant fruit trees, open businesses, raise families. Tortuga ceased being merely a hiding place. It became home. Levasseur also understood another essential truth. The island needed people. Lots of people, especially women. Frontier settlements dominated almost entirely by young men have historically produced energetic social environments, not always stable ones. Recognizing this imbalance, efforts were made to encourage more women to settle on the island. French authorities arranged for groups of women to travel from Europe, hoping families would stabilize the growing colony. The plan enjoyed mixed success. Some marriages flourished. Others collapsed spectacularly. The Caribbean remained a difficult place to build ordinary domestic lives. Disease lingered. Violence remained common. Ships disappeared without warning. Yet gradually, households multiplied. Ordinary routines emerged alongside extraordinary adventures. Bread baked every morning. Children learned trades from parents. Neighbors borrowed tools. People complained about prices. Even pirate ports eventually developed remarkably ordinary concerns. Taxes. Well, perhaps not taxes. That subject remained rather unpopular. Vasseur himself became something of an enigma. Contemporary accounts describe him as intelligent, disciplined, deeply religious, also suspicious. Sometimes intensely suspicious. Rumors circulated that he trusted very few people. Some claimed he carried secret treasures. Others whispered he possessed hidden escape tunnels beneath the fortress. Still others insisted he never slept properly, always expecting betrayal. Given the politics of 17th-century Caribbean colonies, such caution was probably sensible. Power on the frontier rarely remained secure for long. Governors answered to distant authorities. Merchants influenced local politics. Pirate captains possessed armed followers. Foreign governments encouraged conspiracies. Trust became an expensive luxury. Despite this uncertainty, Tortuga prospered. Its reputation spread rapidly across the Atlantic. Young sailors in London heard stories. Hunters in western Hispaniola relocated there. Dutch merchants scheduled regular visits. Even respectable businessmen quietly acknowledged the island's growing importance. Officially, they condemned it. Unofficially, they invested. Money has always displayed remarkable diplomatic flexibility. Spanish officials watched all of this with increasing frustration. Every failed attempt to suppress Tortuga encouraged further migration. Every successful pirate expedition financed additional defenses. The settlement seemed to grow stronger precisely because enemies attacked it. Like many historical frontiers, adversity forged resilience. Vasseur's greatest achievement was perhaps psychological rather than military. He convinced people that Tortuga could survive. That mattered. Confidence attracts settlers. Confidence attracts merchants. Confidence attracts investment. Ships sail toward hope more readily than uncertainty. Soon captains deliberately chose Tortuga over older ports. They trusted its defenses, its markets, its shipyards, its governor. At least most of the time. Around sunset, the harbor often presented an unforgettable sight. Dozens of ships rested peacefully beneath the towering fortress. Smoke drifted lazily upward from evening fires. Church bells occasionally echoed across the bay. Children chased one another along the waterfront, while weary sailors watched the fading light from tavern balconies. It almost looked peaceful, until someone noticed the collection of captured Spanish merchant flags hanging from several ships. Then the illusion faded rather quickly. Peace existed here, but it was a peace purchased through constant readiness for war. Vasseur understood that balance better than anyone. Build strong walls. Maintain discipline. Encourage trade. Welcome useful newcomers. Prepare for attack. Repeat. It proved remarkably effective. Yet nothing in the Caribbean remained permanent. Not governors. Not alliances. Not fortunes. Not even fortresses. Because somewhere beyond the horizon, another English island was quietly beginning its own transformation. Unlike rocky Tortuga, it possessed broad, fertile plains, deep natural harbors, and enough space to build an entirely different kind of pirate refuge. Its name was Jamaica, and within a generation, one city there would become so wealthy, so wild, and so infamous that people across Europe would call it the wickedest city on earth. Its harbor was called Port Royal, and its greatest days were only beginning. Port Royal, the wickedest city on earth. The sea is restless tonight. Not violent, not stormy, just uneasy. Small waves roll into Jamaica's great natural harbor and break softly against the pilings of wooden docks. Lantern light dances across black water. Ships sway gently at anchor. Far offshore, beyond the protection of reefs and sandbars, the Caribbean stretches into darkness, vast and unknowable. Above, stars burn brilliantly. Below, Port Royal refuses to sleep. Music spills from taverns. Laughter echoes through narrow streets. Dice tumble across rough wooden tables. Merchants count silver by candlelight. Sailors spend fortunes they earned only hours earlier. Somewhere, a preacher warns of sin. Nearby, a pirate orders another drink and decides the warning can probably wait until tomorrow. History often remembers Port Royal as a city of vice. A place of drunkenness, gambling, piracy, and excess. And to be fair, it absolutely was. But like many famous cities, the legend only tells part of the story. The truth is far more interesting. To understand Port Royal, we must first understand Jamaica. For much of the 16th century, Jamaica remained a relatively quiet Spanish possession. Compared to Mexico or Peru, it lacked obvious treasures. No mountains of silver. No vast indigenous empires to conquer. No legendary cities filled with gold. As a result, Spain never invested heavily in its development. A few settlements existed. Plantations slowly expanded. Livestock wandered through open countryside. Life continued at a modest pace. Then England arrived, as they so often did. In 1655, during a period of intense rivalry with Spain, an English expedition under Admiral William Penn and General Robert Venables captured Jamaica. The conquest surprised almost everyone, including some of the people involved. Military campaigns rarely unfold according to plan. The original objective had been something else entirely. When that failed, Jamaica became a convenient alternative. History occasionally resembles a traveler pretending they intended to visit their final destination all along. Still, the capture succeeded. Jamaica became English. Spain disagreed, naturally. But Spain disagreed from a distance. And distance matters, especially when cannons and oceans separate opposing opinions. The English immediately recognized the island's potential. Jamaica occupied a strategic position near major shipping routes. Its harbors could shelter large fleets. Its fertile land promised agricultural wealth. Most importantly, it sat directly beside the arteries through which Spanish treasure flowed. For ambitious English officials, the temptation proved irresistible. And so began one of the most fascinating experiments in imperial history. Rather than relying solely on regular naval forces, English governors embraced a simpler solution. They welcomed privateers. Lots of privateers. If Spanish shipping suffered, England benefited. If privateers grew wealthy attacking Spain, England benefited. If captured treasure entered Jamaican markets, well, England benefited again. Everyone seemed pleased, except Spain, and perhaps the unfortunate merchant captains suddenly discovering armed strangers climbing over their rails. The heart of this new strategy became a narrow strip of land extending into Kingston Harbor. Port Royal. Geographically, it was remarkable. The city occupied a long sandy spit guarding one of the finest natural harbors in the Caribbean. Ships entering the harbor passed directly beneath its guns. The anchorage behind the town offered shelter for hundreds of vessels. Deep water allowed even large ships to approach the docks. From a naval perspective, it was almost perfect. From a pirate's perspective, it was paradise. Unlike Tortuga, which had grown gradually from frontier settlements and hunting communities, Port Royal expanded with astonishing speed. Money arrived first, then ships, then more money, then even more ships. Within a few decades, the town became one of the wealthiest places in the Americas. Visitors arriving from Europe often struggled to believe what they saw. Warehouses lined the waterfront. Merchant offices crowded the streets. Expensive goods filled shop windows. Imported wines flowed freely. Silver changed hands constantly. The harbor itself resembled a floating forest of masts. Everywhere one looked, commerce thrived. Some of it legal, some of it considerably less legal. Distinguishing between the two occasionally proved difficult. A merchant purchasing sugar might choose not to investigate its precise origin. A tavern owner rarely asked how customers obtained their gold. A ship captain arriving with suspicious cargo often found eager buyers waiting at the docks. Questions remained unpopular. Profits remained popular. The city quickly developed a reputation unlike anything else in the Caribbean. One visitor described it as overflowing with wealth. Another called it a den of thieves. Both observations were probably accurate. Port Royal became a place where fortunes appeared overnight. A successful privateering voyage might return carrying captured goods worth thousands of pounds. Crews spent money as quickly as they earned it. Taverns flourished. Tailors prospered. Jewelers multiplied. So did gamblers. And prostitutes. And moneylenders. And anyone else capable of separating excited sailors from newly acquired silver. Which, as it turns out, was quite a large industry. Walking through Port Royal after sunset must have been an unforgettable experience. Lanterns illuminated crowded streets. Music emerged from nearly every doorway. Fiddles played. Voices sang. Arguments erupted. Deals were negotiated. The smell of roasting meat drifted from kitchens. Pipe smoke hung in the humid air. Sea salt mixed with perfume, rum, sweat, tobacco, and countless other scents. The city felt alive. Perhaps excessively alive. Even by Caribbean standards. Taverns stood everywhere. Some respectable. Others spectacularly not. Many operated all night. Their owners understood a simple truth. Sailors returning from months at sea possessed limited patience for moderation. One famous observer later claimed Port Royal contained a drinking house for nearly every 10 residents. Whether mathematically accurate or not, the statement captured the city's spirit perfectly. Restraint never became fashionable there. Yet beneath the reputation for vice existed a surprisingly sophisticated economy. Bankers handled transactions. Merchants maintained international networks. Shipbuilders constructed and repaired vessels. Lawyers argued cases. Doctors treated injuries. Government officials administered the colony. Port Royal was not merely a pirate town. It was a genuine city. A wealthy one. Its prosperity attracted people from across the Atlantic world. English merchants. Scottish traders. Irish laborers. Dutch businessmen. French refugees. Jewish merchants expelled from various European territories. Free black artisans. Former soldiers. Runaway servants. Everyone arrived seeking opportunity. Some found it. Others found trouble. Quite a lot of trouble. One profession flourished above all others. Privateering. Officially, privateers differed from pirates. The distinction mattered greatly to governments. Privateers carried legal commissions authorizing attacks against enemy shipping. Pirates possessed no such authorization. In theory, the difference was clear. In practice, it became wonderfully confusing. Consider a privateer sailing under English authority. Attacking Spanish vessels during wartime? Perfectly legal. Continuing the same activity after peace treaties were signed? Piracy. What if news of peace had not yet arrived? What if a captain misunderstood instructions? What if a captured ship happened to belong to a neutral nation? What if profit proved too tempting? Suddenly, the lines separating patriot from criminal became surprisingly blurry. The Caribbean excelled at blurring lines. Many famous pirates began as privateers. The transition often required little more than changing one's attitude toward paperwork. Port Royal welcomed them all, as long as they spent money. And spent money they did. A returning privateering crew might celebrate for weeks. Rum flowed endlessly. Gambling tables remained crowded. Musicians performed until dawn. Shopkeepers eagerly extended credit. The entire city participated in a cycle of wealth, celebration, and anticipation. Everyone waited for the next successful voyage. Because another ship always sailed eventually. Another expedition always formed. Another opportunity always appeared beyond the horizon. No figure embodied this world more completely than Henry Morgan. If Blackbeard became the mythical pirate of popular imagination, Morgan became the great strategist. The ambitious Welshman arrived in the Caribbean as a young man seeking opportunity. He found it, then found considerably more. Morgan possessed intelligence, charisma, and perhaps most importantly, ambition. Lots of ambition. He understood warfare. He understood politics. He understood human nature. Most importantly, he understood that Port Royal offered resources unavailable elsewhere. Money, ships, experienced crews, supportive governors, reliable markets, everything required for large-scale operations. Over time, Morgan organized increasingly ambitious expeditions against Spanish targets. Not random attacks. Carefully planned campaigns. Cities were captured. Fortifications assaulted. Treasure seized. His reputation grew with every success. To the English, he became a hero. To the Spanish, a nightmare. To Port Royal, he became proof that extraordinary fortunes remained possible. Young sailors listened eagerly to stories of Morgan's victories. Merchants invested. Governors approved. Taverns celebrated. Success inspired imitation. Soon the harbor filled with captains hoping to become the next Henry Morgan. Few succeeded. Many tried. Port Royal's wealth continued expanding. Stone buildings replaced older wooden structures. Churches appeared. Fortifications strengthened. The city increasingly resembled a permanent center of power rather than a frontier settlement. Visitors compared it favorably to major European ports. Some claimed it rivaled London in luxury. This was probably an exaggeration. Travelers have always enjoyed exaggeration. Still, the city genuinely impressed observers. Its prosperity seemed limitless. And that, unfortunately, is often when history becomes dangerous. Because every city, every empire, every harbor eventually begins believing its success will last forever. Port Royal was no exception. The merchants counted profits. The governors planned expansions. The captains prepared new voyages. The taverns remained crowded. The harbor remained full. Everything appeared secure, permanent, certain. But deep beneath the city, invisible to everyone walking its streets, forces were already gathering. The sand upon which Port Royal stood had always been unstable. The sea had always been waiting. And one terrible morning, long after the city reached the height of its glory, nature would remind everyone that even the richest pirate haven in the world remained only a fragile collection of buildings balanced between land and water. For now, though, none of that has happened. Tonight the city still shines. Music still drifts through warm Caribbean air. Silver still changes hands. Ships still fill the harbor. Henry Morgan's star continues rising. And somewhere among the crowds, future pirates are already listening to stories that will inspire the next generation of adventurers. Because the Golden Age of Piracy is approaching. And soon another harbor, far to the north in the Bahamas, will challenge Port Royal itself. A place called Nassau. A place that will become the closest thing pirates ever create to a republic. A place where kings hold little power. And where the black flag will fly higher than ever before. Nassau before the pirate republic. The wind sounds different in the Bahamas. It still carries the familiar scent of salt and warm sea spray. But here the islands seem lighter somehow, almost delicate. Instead of towering mountains and dense tropical forests, long ribbons of white sand stretch between shallow turquoise waters. Coral reefs shimmer beneath the surface like submerged cities built by nature herself. Sea turtles drift lazily through clear lagoons while pelicans dive with astonishing precision into schools of silver fish. From above, the Bahamas look peaceful, almost fragile. It is difficult to imagine that these quiet islands will soon become the headquarters of the most famous pirates in history. Yet appearances have always been wonderfully deceptive, especially in the Caribbean. The Bahamas form an enormous maze. More than 700 islands. Thousands of tiny cays. Endless coral reefs. Shallow banks where the sea changes from deep sapphire to brilliant shades of emerald and aquamarine. To experienced sailors, this labyrinth offered protection. To strangers, it offered disaster. Spanish captains dreaded these waters. Charts remained incomplete. Storms shifted sandbars. Hidden coral heads lurked just beneath the surface, waiting patiently for the careless or unfortunate. One mistake could tear open the hull of a heavily loaded galleon in a matter of seconds. Many did. The sea kept what it claimed. For centuries, shipwrecks scattered treasure across these reefs. Some were recovered. Many never were. And every new wreck inspired another story whispered in taverns from Havana to London. Perhaps there was still silver lying beneath the waves. Perhaps gold. Perhaps emeralds. Or perhaps just another unfortunate shipment of iron nails, which would certainly disappoint treasure hunters, but delight local blacksmiths. History is rarely as glamorous as legend prefers. At the center of this watery maze lay New Providence Island. Its greatest treasure was not gold. It was geography. A magnificent natural harbor cut deeply into the island, protected by narrow entrances and surrounded by shallow reefs that discouraged large warships. Merchant captains appreciated the shelter. Privateers appreciated it even more. Pirates would eventually adore it. The settlement established there was called Nassau. When it first appeared during the late 17th century, it looked nothing like the bustling city tourists know today. The earliest Nassau was little more than a frontier town. Wooden houses, a few warehouses, simple docks, a church, several taverns. A fort that always seemed to require another repair. Goats wandered freely. Pigs did much the same. Dogs barked at absolutely everything. Mud claimed the streets whenever rain arrived. Dust claimed them whenever it did not. Elegant it was not. Useful? Very. The town's population remained small. Perhaps a few hundred souls during its earliest years. Everyone knew everyone. Or at least believed they did. News traveled astonishingly quickly. A strange sail on the horizon might become the day's principal topic of conversation. Who had arrived? What cargo did they carry? Were they merchants? Privateers? Smugglers? Had they brought letters from England? Fresh supplies? Or merely another collection of enthusiastic sailors determined to spend money faster than they earned it? Usually the last option. Unlike Port Royal, Nassau possessed fewer grand merchants and wealthy investors. Its economy remained modest. Fishing supported many families. Small farms produced vegetables where soil allowed. Salt collected from nearby ponds became valuable for preserving food. Timber and ship repairs generated additional income. Life proceeded quietly. Until ships arrived. Everything changed whenever sails appeared beyond the harbor entrance. The town suddenly burst into activity. Dockworkers hurried toward the waterfront. Merchants prepared warehouses. Innkeepers aired out rooms. Children ran through the streets announcing the news long before adults had confirmed it. Ships meant opportunity. Fresh customers. Fresh gossip. Fresh profits. Every arrival carried stories from across the Atlantic world. Wars in Europe. Prices in Barbados. Storm damage in Cuba. Disease outbreaks. Royal marriages. Executions. Rebellions. A frontier settlement depended upon visiting ships not merely for trade, but for information. The sea served as its newspaper, and occasionally its post office. Not every visitor arrived honestly. Smugglers soon discovered Nassau's advantages. The harbor remained lightly supervised. Officials often lacked sufficient resources to inspect every cargo. Customs regulations became flexible. A merchant avoiding taxes elsewhere might quietly unload goods here. French wine, Dutch cloth, Spanish sugar, English manufactured tools. Everything found buyers. Commerce rarely paused to examine legal technicalities. The people of Nassau understood practical economics. Better to collect modest profits from questionable trade than no profits at all. Besides, governments changed policies constantly. A cargo considered illegal one year might become perfectly acceptable the next. The merchants preferred stability. The politicians rarely provided it. By the closing decades of the 17th century, another force began shaping the Caribbean. War. Again, Europe seemed almost incapable of remaining peaceful for extended periods. Kings inherited disputed thrones. Dynasties competed. Alliances shifted. Treaties dissolved. Every European conflict eventually spilled across the Atlantic. The Caribbean became one vast extension of continental rivalries. Privateering expanded accordingly. Governors eagerly issued commissions authorizing attacks upon enemy shipping. Experienced sailors found abundant employment. Young adventurers crossed oceans seeking fortune. Nassau benefited. Privateers required supplies, repairs, fresh water, safe anchorages. Exactly the services the little settlement already provided. Gradually, more armed vessels visited, then remained, then invited friends. Growth often begins quietly. No one notices at first. One additional warehouse, another dock, several new taverns, a blacksmith expanding his forge, a sailmaker hiring apprentices. Before long, a modest village becomes a thriving port almost without realizing it. Nature also played an unexpected role in Nassau's future. The Bahamas sat directly across important shipping lanes linking Spanish America with Europe. Treasure fleets sailing from Havana toward Spain often passed nearby. Sometimes storms separated vessels. Sometimes ships became damaged. Sometimes captains made unfortunate navigational decisions. Pirates and privateers paid close attention. Why chase merchants across the entire Caribbean when geography conveniently guided them toward your neighborhood? It was rather like opening a bakery beside the busiest road in town. Customers eventually appeared. One remarkable feature distinguished Nassau from many older Caribbean settlements: space. Unlike rocky Tortuga, New Providence possessed room to grow. Additional houses could be built. Gardens expanded. Warehouses multiplied. Ships crowded the harbor without overwhelming it. Potential attracted settlers. The town slowly developed an identity unlike Port Royal's extravagant wealth or Tortuga's rugged defiance. Nassau felt open, welcoming, informal, almost unfinished, as though waiting for history to decide what it wished to become. The fort overlooking the harbor symbolized this uncertainty perfectly. It existed. Technically, its cannons watched the sea. Mostly, repairs never seemed entirely complete. Money remained scarce. Governors requested assistance from London. London usually possessed more urgent concerns, such as European wars, or parliamentary arguments, or remembering the Bahamas existed at all. Frontier colonies frequently learned self-reliance. No one else seemed especially eager to solve their problems. Ordinary life continued regardless. Women baked bread in small ovens warmed before sunrise. Children gathered shells along quiet beaches. Fishermen repaired nets beneath palm trees. Carpenters shaped local timber into boats sturdy enough for reef fishing. Church bells marked Sundays. Markets filled with vegetables, salted fish, tropical fruit, and imported goods whenever merchant ships arrived. Life possessed rhythms as old as the sea itself. Visitors occasionally remarked upon the extraordinary beauty surrounding the town. Clear water revealed fish swimming several meters below the surface. Gentle breezes cooled even the hottest afternoons. White clouds drifted lazily across endless blue skies. Had circumstances been slightly different, Nassau might have become little more than another peaceful colonial harbor. History had different intentions. During the closing years of the 17th century and the opening years of the 18th, events far beyond the Bahamas began reshaping the Atlantic. The War of the Spanish Succession engulfed Europe. England, France, Spain, the Dutch Republic, Austria. Nearly everyone found reasons to fight. Thousands of privateers received legal commissions. They attacked enemy shipping with enthusiastic determination. Many grew wealthy. Many more gained something equally valuable: experience. They learned navigation, naval tactics, leadership, the operation of armed ships, how to recruit crews, how to negotiate with merchants, how to survive months at sea. Then, eventually, the war ended. Governments signed treaties. Peace returned, at least officially. Suddenly, thousands of experienced privateers discovered uncomfortable news. Their commissions had expired. The war that justified their livelihoods no longer existed. Navies reduced spending. Merchant companies hired only a fraction of available sailors. Ports overflowed with unemployed men possessing exceptional skills in operating heavily armed ships. It was, one might observe, a rather unfortunate labor market. Imagine spending years capturing enemy vessels legally, receiving praise from governors, collecting prize money, then one morning being informed that your profession no longer existed. The sea had not changed. The merchant ships had certainly not disappeared. Only the paperwork had. Many former privateers stared across Caribbean waters and reached remarkably similar conclusions. If governments no longer wished to employ them, perhaps they could employ themselves. The transition proved alarmingly simple. Keep the ship. Keep the crew. Keep the cannons. Simply stop asking permission. Some captains hesitated. Others embraced the idea immediately. The Bahamas watched them arrive. One ship, then another, then several more. Experienced seamen searching for a harbor that asked few questions and offered excellent protection. Nassau welcomed them, perhaps not deliberately at first, but inevitably. The town possessed everything they needed: safe anchorage, supplies, markets, friendly merchants, weak government, distance from powerful navies. Within only a few years, The little settlement would transform beyond recognition. New names would echo through its taverns. Benjamin Hornigold, Charles Vane, Black Sam Bellamy, and Bonny, Calico Jack Rackham, Edward Teach, better remembered today as Blackbeard. They were not all there yet, but they were coming. One sail after another appearing beyond the reefs. One captain after another dropping anchor inside the harbor. One decision after another slowly creating something the Atlantic world had never witnessed before. Not merely another pirate refuge, but a community governed largely by pirates themselves. A republic of sorts. Untidy, unstable, dangerous, extraordinary. As evening settles over New Providence Island, the harbor grows quiet once more. Fishing boats return. The last rays of sunlight turn the water to molten gold. Palm trees sway gently in the warm breeze. The little town rests peacefully beneath the stars, unaware that history is already steering toward its shores. Within a single generation, Nassau will become the most famous pirate haven the world has ever known. And the Golden Age of Piracy will truly begin. The Republic of Pirates. The first light of morning spreads across Nassau Harbor almost without a sound. The sea is perfectly still. For a few quiet moments, before the marketplace opens and before hammers begin echoing from the shipyards, the harbor feels almost untouched. The water is so clear that rays and small reef sharks glide silently over white sand far below the anchored ships. Pelicans perch upon weathered posts, watching patiently for breakfast. It is peaceful, deceptively peaceful. Because beneath this calm surface, something extraordinary is happening. No king rules this harbor. No powerful governor truly controls it. No empire can honestly claim to command the dozens of heavily armed vessels anchored beneath the Bahamian sun. Instead, for one remarkable moment in history, the people with the greatest authority are men and a few women, who have spent much of their lives ignoring authority altogether. It sounds almost impossible. Yet for several years during the early 18th century, Nassau became something astonishing. Not merely a pirate refuge, not simply a lawless town, but something approaching a pirate republic. The idea itself would have horrified Europe's monarchs. Imagine receiving reports in London or Madrid explaining that hundreds of armed sailors had effectively created their own independent community. No noble families, no royal taxes, no hereditary titles. Captains elected rather than appointed. Crews voting on important decisions. Treasure divided according to agreed rules. One can almost hear aristocrats choking on their breakfast. Of course, the reality remained considerably messier. Pirates did not gather to write elegant constitutions beneath palm trees. They were practical people solving practical problems. If they wished to survive, they needed cooperation. And cooperation required rules. The collapse of the War of the Spanish Succession had created thousands of unemployed privateers. These were not inexperienced criminals. Far from it. Many had spent years fighting under legal commissions. They understood naval warfare. They understood discipline. They understood command. Now peace had made them unnecessary. Or at least governments believed so. The Caribbean politely disagreed. Merchant ships still crossed the Atlantic. Silver still flowed from the Americas. Sugar plantations continued producing extraordinary wealth. Only one thing had changed: the legal paperwork. Many sailors concluded that if kings refused to continue the business, someone else would. One by one, ships began arriving in Nassau. Some flew English colors, others French, some Dutch. A few carried no flag at all until approaching another vessel. That was usually an ominous sign. The harbor slowly filled with men who possessed little interest in returning to ordinary life. Why accept miserable wages aboard merchant ships after earning fortunes during wartime? Why submit again to captains who ruled through fear? Why endure floggings, unpaid wages, spoiled food, and endless discipline? Piracy promised something different. Danger, certainly, but also possibility. Freedom, at least by the standards of the 18th century. And, perhaps most importantly, a voice. Merchant sailors rarely possessed one. Aboard most naval and commercial vessels, captains exercised nearly absolute authority. Punishments could be brutal. Food distribution unequal. Pay unreliable. Many ordinary sailors felt less like employees than property. Pirate ships turned much of this upside down. Not because pirates were idealists. Because experience had taught them practical lessons. A miserable crew fought poorly. A respected crew fought fiercely. Many pirate captains were elected. That single fact astonishes modern audiences. Imagine choosing your captain by vote. If a leader proved incompetent, cruel, or cowardly, the crew might simply replace him. Not immediately, not casually, but the possibility existed. Authority depended upon confidence, rather than birth, rather than social class, rather than wealth. Competence mattered. The quartermaster became equally important. This officer represented the interests of the crew, supervised distribution of supplies and treasure, and acted as a balance against excessive authority. It was hardly perfect democracy, yet compared to many European institutions of the time, it was surprisingly progressive. Of course, there remained one important qualification. You first had to become a pirate. Not exactly a universally recommended career path. Still, among those who joined, agreements mattered. Many crews drafted written articles before beginning a voyage. These documents established rules. How would treasure be divided? What punishment awaited thieves? How much compensation should someone receive for losing an arm in battle? Yes, they actually discussed such matters. Rather sensibly, considering the profession. A carpenter might receive extra shares because skilled repairs proved invaluable. The captain often earned additional portions. The quartermaster did as well. Ordinary sailors still received meaningful shares rather than tiny wages. Risk and reward felt more closely connected. Modern companies occasionally speak about teamwork. Pirates often practiced it with remarkable seriousness, mostly because failure tended to involve cannon fire. Nassau became the place where these ideas flourished. Every tavern hosted debates. Captains recruited crews. Quartermasters negotiated agreements. Merchants purchased captured goods. Shipwrights worked continuously. Blacksmiths rarely allowed their forges to cool. The harbor resembled a gigantic workshop preparing expeditions that would soon scatter across the Caribbean. Visitors described an astonishing variety of people. English sailors drank beside French privateers. Dutch merchants bargained with former Spanish prisoners. African sailors, some free and some escaped from slavery, found opportunities aboard pirate vessels unavailable elsewhere. The pirate world certainly contained prejudice and violence. It was still a product of its age. Yet compared with many colonial societies, pirate crews often proved unexpectedly diverse. Shared danger erased certain distinctions. When cannonballs began flying, nationality mattered rather less than whether someone could load a gun efficiently. A surprising number of black sailors served aboard pirate ships. Some had escaped slavery. Others joined voluntarily after merchant vessels were captured. Several rose to positions of real authority. Again, not because pirates possessed advanced moral philosophies. Because useful people increased everyone's chances of survival. The sea rewarded competence more reliably than social status. Women also appeared in Nassau more frequently than later myths sometimes suggest. Most worked as tavern owners, merchants, cooks, laundresses, or traders. Some married sailors. Others operated businesses independently. A few became legendary. And Bonny had not yet reached the height of her fame. Neither had Mary Red. But the world that would eventually allow their remarkable stories already existed. Nassau welcomed unusual lives. Perhaps because nearly everyone there had abandoned an ordinary one. The marketplace each morning became a fascinating spectacle. Fresh fish lay beside tropical fruit. Imported cloth beside barrels of gunpowder. Sugar, tobacco, spices, rope, canvas, iron tools, candles, leather boots, pistols, dried meat, rum, and countless other necessities crowded the stalls. One merchant quietly sold navigation instruments. Another specialized in medicines. A third somehow acquired expensive French wine despite England and France periodically fighting one another. Commerce possesses an extraordinary ability to ignore political inconvenience. Money translated every language. One constant challenge remained supplies. Pirates could not simply sail forever. Ships consumed astonishing quantities of food. Salted beef, salt pork, dried peas, hard biscuits, cheese, butter, fresh water, beer when available, rum whenever possible. A large crew preparing for months at sea required mountains of provisions. Nassau became an expert at supplying them. Local farmers expanded production. Fishermen increased their catches. Merchants imported flour from North America. Everything revolved around ships. Without ships, Nassau became another sleepy island settlement. With them, it became the beating heart of Atlantic piracy. Shipyards echoed from sunrise until sunset. Axes chopped timber. Adzes shaped planks. Sawyers split enormous logs. Caulkers sealed leaking hulls with tar and fibers. Riggers climbed masts with astonishing confidence, balancing hundreds of feet above the docks while replacing worn ropes. Watching them probably inspired equal amounts of admiration and anxiety. Carpenters repaired battle damage. Blacksmiths forged anchors. Coopers assembled barrels. Sailmakers stitched canvas under the relentless Bahamian sun. An entire economy revolved around keeping wooden ships alive. Because ships were alive, in a sense, they demanded constant care. Neglect invited disaster. The taverns grew louder each evening. Music floated through open windows. Dice rolled endlessly. Cards slapped across wooden tables. Stories became increasingly impressive as mugs emptied. One captain claimed to have escaped 6 warships. Another insisted a Spanish treasure fleet had nearly fallen into his hands. Someone always knew where hidden riches waited. Someone always possessed a map. Someone always promised tomorrow would bring unimaginable fortune. Tomorrow rarely cooperated. Still, hope remained abundant. Among the captains gathering in Nassau, one man gradually earned unusual respect. Benjamin Hornigold. Unlike many later pirates, Hornigold possessed experience as both privateer and merchant. He understood politics almost as well as navigation. He became something of an elder statesman among Nassau's growing pirate community. Not exactly a king. Pirates generally disliked kings. More like a respected organizer. He recruited crews, settled disputes, encouraged cooperation, recognized talent. Under his influence, Nassau evolved from scattered individuals into something resembling a coordinated network. Not perfectly organized. Pirates rarely achieved perfect organization, but organized enough. Young sailors arriving from Europe often sought Hornigold's approval. If he recommended a captain, opportunities followed. If he refused, finding work became considerably harder. Influence, even without official titles, remained real. Yet this fragile republic balanced upon uncertain foundations. It depended upon weak imperial oversight, upon continuing profits, upon cooperation among fiercely independent captains, upon European governments remaining distracted. None of these conditions would last forever. Across the Atlantic, politicians slowly realized the scale of the problem. Reports described hundreds of pirates operating openly from Nassau. Merchant shipping suffered. Insurance costs rose. Colonial governors complained. The British Empire finally reached an uncomfortable conclusion. Perhaps ignoring Nassau had not been the wisest long-term strategy. Someone would eventually have to restore royal authority. Someone capable. Someone determined. Someone willing to challenge an entire community of experienced sea raiders. That reckoning remains several years away. For now, the Republic enjoyed its brief golden moment. As the sun slips beneath the western horizon, Nassau Harbor glows amber and crimson. Dozens of ships rock gently at anchor. Their black silhouettes stand against a sky slowly filling with stars. Music drifts across calm water. Laughter rises from the taverns. Some captains prepare for tomorrow's voyage. Others celebrate successful returns. Children chase one another along the docks, never imagining that history will one day remember this little harbor as the closest pirates ever came to building a nation of their own. It will not last. Nothing in the Caribbean ever does. But for this fleeting chapter, beneath warm trade winds and endless stars, the black flag flies not merely as a warning, but almost as a banner of belonging. And soon, into this remarkable harbor, will sail the man whose name will become larger than piracy itself. Edward Teach. The world will remember him simply as Blackbeard. Blackbeard in the shadow of the black flag. The sea before dawn has a curious stillness. Not silence, never silence. Even in the quietest hour, the Caribbean breathes. Tiny waves murmur against the hulls of anchored ships. Rigging taps softly against wooden masts. Somewhere in the darkness, a gull lets out a sleepy cry before settling again. The warm breeze carries the smell of salt, tar, damp hemp rope, burnt oak from last night's cooking fires, and just a hint of tobacco drifting from a sailor who could never quite convince himself to sleep. Above Nassau, the stars slowly begin to disappear. The eastern horizon glows pale blue. Another day is arriving. Somewhere beyond those distant reefs, another merchant ship has already raised its sails. Its captain believes today will be uneventful. He is mistaken, because somewhere nearby, Edward Teach is awake. History remembers him by another name, Blackbeard. Perhaps no pirate has ever become so completely wrapped in legend. Ask almost anyone to picture a pirate, and they unknowingly borrow pieces of Edward Teach. The enormous black beard, the fearsome appearance, the pistols tucked across his chest, the smoking fuses woven into his hat before battle, the enormous reputation that grew until it seemed almost supernatural. Yet, as always, reality proves far more fascinating than myth. Edward Teach was probably born around 1680 in Bristol, England. Exactly where remains uncertain. History occasionally loses track of future legends while they are still ordinary children. Nothing suggests his early life was especially remarkable. Like countless young men of his generation, he eventually found the sea. Or perhaps the sea found him. Those years taught him navigation, naval combat, leadership, and perhaps most importantly, patience. Patience is not a quality most people associate with pirates. It should be. Successful piracy involved surprisingly little dramatic sword fighting. It involved waiting, watching, listening, learning shipping routes, studying the wind, understanding currents, choosing exactly the right moment. The Caribbean rewarded the patient. The impatient often ended up. By the time Edward Teach arrived in Nassau, he was already an experienced sailor. Not yet famous, not yet feared, just another capable mariner among hundreds of equally weather-beaten men. His fortune changed under the guidance of Benjamin Hornigold. Hornigold had become one of Nassau's most respected pirate captains. He recognized ability when he saw it. Teach possessed that ability. Soon the younger sailor found himself commanding increasingly important responsibilities. Eventually, Hornigold entrusted him with his own captured vessel. It was an extraordinary vote of confidence. Few decisions in pirate history would prove more significant. Teach learned quickly, very quickly. He observed everything. How successful captains negotiated. How crews remained loyal. How fear could accomplish more than violence. That final lesson would become his masterpiece. Because Blackbeard understood something that many warriors throughout history eventually discover. Winning battles is expensive. Avoiding battles is profitable. Imagine commanding a heavily laden merchant ship, weeks from home. Cargo worth a fortune. Your crew consists mostly of ordinary sailors rather than trained soldiers. Then, one morning, a strange vessel appears on the horizon. It closes surprisingly fast. As it approaches, you begin noticing unsettling details. Its hull bears scars from countless battles. Cannons line its sides. The crew moves with remarkable confidence. Then you see the captain. He is enormous. His beard hangs almost to his chest. Slow burning fuses weave through his hair, filling the air around his face with curling smoke. His coat bristles with pistols. Several swords hang at his waist. He looks less like a man than something escaped from a nightmare. Would you fight? Or surrender immediately? Most captains chose the second option, exactly as Blackbeard intended. Contrary to popular imagination, he often preferred intimidation over slaughter. Dead merchants purchased nothing. Burned ships carried no valuable cargo. Quick surrender benefited everyone. Well, almost everyone. The merchant captain undoubtedly disagreed. Still, compared with a bloody battle, surrender usually saved lives. Fear became Blackbeard's greatest weapon. He carefully cultivated his appearance. The smoking fuses served little practical military purpose. They served psychological ones. Imagine cannon smoke drifting across a battlefield while your opponent appears surrounded by flames. It created an unforgettable impression. Stories spread. Each retelling enlarged his reputation. Soon captains surrendered simply because they believed Blackbeard impossible to defeat. Legend became strategy. It cost almost nothing. It earned fortunes. Around 1717, fortune delivered Blackbeard an extraordinary prize, a large French slave ship named La Concorde. The vessel had been transporting hundreds of enslaved Africans across the Atlantic before disease weakened the crew. Blackbeard captured the ship with remarkable ease. The prize transformed his career. He renamed her Queen Anne's Revenge. The name itself carried political meaning. Many pirates still sympathized with the recently deposed Stuart monarchy of England. Whether Blackbeard genuinely embraced those politics or simply appreciated dramatic symbolism remains uncertain. Either way, the name echoed across the Atlantic. Queen Anne's Revenge became one of the most powerful pirate ships ever to sail the Caribbean. She carried around 40 cannons. Her crew eventually exceeded 300 men. Imagine seeing such a vessel emerging from morning mist. She dwarfed ordinary merchant ships. Her broad hull towered above the water. Rows of gunports lined her sides. Black flags fluttered in the breeze. Experienced captains immediately understood the situation. Running seemed unlikely. Fighting seemed worse. Surrender became remarkably attractive. Nassau celebrated Blackbeard's success. His return transformed the harbor into a festival. Captured cargo filled warehouses. Merchants eagerly inspected exotic goods. Blacksmiths repaired battle damage. Carpenters strengthened masts. Sailmakers patched torn canvas. The taverns overflowed. Every successful pirate expedition poured wealth into the local economy. Shopkeepers smiled. Rum sellers smiled even more. Money spread through the town astonishingly quickly. A captured cargo of sugar might pass through half a dozen hands within days. Merchants purchased it. Warehouse owners stored it. Ship captains transported it elsewhere. Dock workers unloaded it. Coopers repacked it. Everyone earned something. Piracy, unpleasant though it certainly was for its victims, supported thousands of ordinary livelihoods throughout the Caribbean. That uncomfortable truth often disappears beneath romantic legends. Blackbeard himself appears to have understood commerce surprisingly well. He negotiated with governors, maintained relationships with merchants, distributed treasure according to agreed shares. Successful piracy required accounting almost as much as courage. Someone had to keep track of everything. Perhaps history should remember more pirate bookkeepers, though admittedly they inspire fewer adventure novels. Daily life aboard Queen Anne's Revenge remained demanding. Despite popular stories, pirate crews rarely spent entire voyages singing cheerful songs while searching for treasure maps. Reality involved endless work. Sails required constant adjustment. Rigging demanded inspection. The hull needed cleaning. Cannons had to remain ready. Fresh water rationed carefully. Food monitored closely. Storms ignored everyone's schedule. Crew members stood watches throughout day and night. Someone always remained awake. Someone always scanned the horizon. Because danger approached from every direction. Enemy warships, hidden reefs, hurricanes, disease, fire, mutiny. Even simple accidents claimed lives with alarming regularity. Life at sea remained unforgiving. Meals rarely impressed anyone. Salted beef, salt pork, hard biscuits, dried peas, occasionally rice. Fresh fish if fortune smiled. Fresh fruit whenever land appeared. Rum often improved morale more effectively than cuisine. The ship itself became an entire floating community. Carpenters repaired damage. Surgeons treated injuries. Cooks prepared meals. Gunners maintained weapons. Musicians occasionally entertained exhausted crews during calm evenings. Yes, pirates enjoyed music. After weeks surrounded only by wind and waves, a fiddle or flute could lift weary spirits remarkably well. Not every day involved excitement. Sometimes the sea remained empty. Days passed without encountering another vessel. The crew cleaned equipment, mended clothing, played cards, told increasingly exaggerated stories, stared endlessly toward distant horizons. The ocean possesses an extraordinary ability to encourage reflection, perhaps because there is little else to look at. Then suddenly, a sail appeared. Everything changed instantly. Sleep vanished. Orders echoed across the deck. Cannons prepared. Sails adjusted. The hunt began. Blackbeard generally preferred overwhelming strength. He often sailed with additional pirate vessels nearby. Merchant captains facing multiple armed ships understood resistance bordered upon hopelessness. Again, fear saved time. Violence became unnecessary. Most of the time. Yet violence remained close. Always. One misjudged encounter. One panicked captain. One desperate broadside. Everything could descend into chaos within minutes. Blackbeard never forgot that. Neither did his crew. By now, his reputation had spread throughout the Atlantic. Insurance companies in London discussed him. Governors received reports. Merchants altered routes. Spanish captains cursed his name. Children probably heard exaggerated bedtime stories featuring the terrifying pirate whose beard smoked like a volcano. Legends travel faster than ships. Sometimes they arrive years before the actual person. As evening falls once more over Nassau, Queen Anne's Revenge rests proudly at anchor. Lanterns glow along her decks. The massive ship rocks gently with the tide. Nearby, dozens of smaller pirate vessels surround her like loyal companions. On shore, the taverns overflow with laughter and music. Merchants calculate profits. Blacksmiths extinguish their fires. Children chase one another through dusty streets. For a brief, shining moment, Nassau has become the center of an entirely different world. A world where famous captains arrive not as hunted criminals, but celebrated heroes. A world where ordinary sailors dream of commanding fleets. A world where the black flag has become almost a symbol of opportunity. But legends carry dangers of their own. The greater Blackbeard's reputation grows. The more determined governments become to destroy him. Far away, in London, officials are finally losing patience. Merchant companies demand protection. Colonial governors demand action. The Royal Navy begins preparing. The age of pirate freedom has reached its highest point, which means, as history so often reminds us, the long decline is about to begin. Life inside the pirate havens. The rain arrives without warning. One moment, Nassau basks beneath another cloudless Caribbean afternoon. The sea sparkles like polished glass. Palm trees sway lazily in the warm breeze. Children race barefoot along the beach, chasing one another between overturned fishing boats. Then the sky changes. Dark clouds gather over the horizon with astonishing speed. The wind shifts. Birds disappear inland. Within minutes, rain begins falling so heavily that the harbor itself almost vanishes behind a curtain of water. The streets become streams. Lanterns are hurried indoors. Sailors laugh as they run for shelter, although few of them move particularly quickly. After all, anyone who has spent months at sea has already accepted the simple truth that staying dry is usually an impossible ambition. Besides, the taverns are waiting. If you wish to understand a pirate haven, not merely its famous captains or dramatic sea battles, you would spend very little time aboard ships. Instead, you would sit quietly in one of those taverns. Order whatever passed for reasonably safe ale. Remain unnoticed, and simply listen. Because the real heart of Nassau, Tortuga, or Port Royal was never the harbor. It was the people. History often treats pirate towns as little more than collections of criminals. In reality, they were bustling communities. Chaotic communities. Often dangerous communities. But communities nonetheless. A pirate ship might spend weeks or months at sea. A pirate haven lived every single day. Before sunrise, fishermen were already leaving the harbor. They paddled narrow boats toward nearby reefs where snapper, grouper, and turtle could be found in abundance. Fishing was honest work. Not glamorous. Not especially profitable. But honest. Which, in a pirate port, occasionally made one rather unusual. By the time those fishermen returned, market stalls were opening. Women arranged baskets of tropical fruit beneath woven awnings. Plantains, limes, oranges, coconuts, papayas, pineapples. Many sailors had not seen fresh fruit for weeks. They happily paid for it. Whether they understood the science or not, they knew fresh food somehow restored strength after long voyages. Scurvy remained one of the greatest enemies at sea. A simple lime sometimes accomplished more than an entire chest filled with medicine. Nearby, butchers displayed cuts of pork and beef. The smell drifted through the streets long before customers arrived. Bakers removed fresh loaves from clay ovens. Warm bread became one of the greatest luxuries imaginable for crews accustomed to chewing hard biscuits that occasionally seemed capable of surviving cannon fire. A loaf baked that morning tasted almost miraculous. Children wandered between the stalls carrying baskets or buckets for their families. Some chased stray chickens. Others tried unsuccessfully to avoid work assigned by parents. Human nature changes remarkably little across the centuries. The docks soon became crowded. Shipwrights examined damaged hulls. Blacksmiths unloaded iron. Coopers rolled freshly made barrels toward waiting warehouses. Every profession depended upon the sea. Without ships, the town stopped breathing. The blacksmith's forge rarely cooled. The steady ringing of hammer against anvil echoed across the harbor from dawn until sunset. Anchors required repair. Cannons cracked under repeated firing. Nails bent. Chains rusted. Tools wore out. A talented blacksmith became one of the most respected people in any pirate haven. Not because he carried weapons, because he made them usable. His workshop smelled permanently of coal smoke, hot iron, and sweat. Sparks danced through the air like tiny fireflies. Visitors often stood outside watching glowing metal slowly transform beneath practiced hands. There is something strangely hypnotic about watching someone truly master a craft. Even after 300 years. Nearby, ship carpenters worked with equal skill. A wooden ship never stopped aging. Salt water seeped into every joint. Marine worms bored tiny tunnels through submerged planks. Storms twisted timbers. Cannonballs left memorable holes. Entire sections of a vessel might require replacement after a single voyage. Shipwrights approached their work with quiet confidence. Measure, cut, fit, hammer, repeat. The rhythm hardly changed. Without them, piracy would have lasted approximately one leaking voyage. One group received rather less appreciation than they deserved. The sailmakers. Imagine sewing enormous pieces of heavy canvas beneath the tropical sun. Every stitch mattered. A weak seam could cost lives during a storm. The work demanded patience. Remarkable patience. Fortunately, sailmakers possessed it. Or perhaps they simply developed it after years surrounded by impatient sailors. The marketplace also attracted merchants from astonishingly diverse backgrounds. English traders bargained beside Dutch merchants. French shopkeepers sold imported wine. Jewish businessmen maintained commercial connections stretching across Europe and the Americas. African craftsmen produced furniture, barrels, baskets, and tools. Indigenous traders occasionally arrived with medicines, tobacco, or local knowledge impossible to purchase elsewhere. The Caribbean had become one of the world's great crossroads. Goods traveled constantly. So did ideas. Languages blended together until conversations became curious mixtures of English, French, Spanish, Dutch, Portuguese, and countless local expressions. Visitors often complained they could hardly understand anyone. The residents understood one another perfectly. Mostly. Occasionally misunderstandings resulted in fistfights. But that was hardly unusual. Taverns remained the true centers of information. Walk through the doorway during evening hours. Immediately, warmth surrounds you. Candles flicker against rough wooden walls darkened by years of smoke. The air smells of rum, tobacco, roasted meat, damp clothing, and seawater drying upon boots. A fiddler plays somewhere near the fireplace. Perhaps enthusiastically. After several cups of rum, the distinction matters surprisingly little. At one table, merchants negotiate cargo prices. At another, sailors argue over navigation. A weathered captain spreads charts across scarred wood while explaining hidden passages through the Bahamas. Someone nearby claims knowledge of a Spanish treasure ship. Nobody believes him, until another sailor quietly nods. Then everyone listens. Rumors traveled faster than official dispatches. Sometimes they proved false. Sometimes astonishingly accurate. Every expedition began with information. The taverns collected it. Pirates also needed clothing. Their appearance in modern films often suggests they dressed theatrically every day. Reality proved considerably more practical. Loose linen shirts, simple trousers, leather belts, sturdy shoes whenever available, wide-brimmed hats against the sun, coats for cooler nights. Nothing especially romantic. Clothing wore out quickly aboard ships. Salt destroyed fabric. Rain soaked everything. Sunlight faded colors. Needles and thread ranked among the most valuable possessions many sailors owned. A torn sail endangered the ship. A torn shirt merely embarrassed its owner. Both eventually required repair. The laundresses understood this perfectly. One often overlooked group kept pirate towns functioning: the washerwomen. After weeks at sea, clothing arrived in astonishing condition. Salt-stained, smoke-filled, sometimes stiff enough to stand upright without assistance. Washing such garments demanded determination and strong arms. Fresh water remained precious, soap expensive. Yet somehow they managed. Clean clothes became one of civilization's quiet triumphs. The surgeons occupied an uncomfortable position. Every busy port required medical care. Pirate havens required rather more than average. Knife wounds, broken bones, infections, burns, falls from rigging, accidental gunshot injuries. Some stories begin with the phrase, "Watch this." History strongly suggests they rarely end well. 17th century medicine possessed obvious limitations. Still, experienced surgeons saved countless lives. They learned through necessity. Amputation remained horrifying, yet sometimes prevented worse. Herbal remedies mixed with European techniques. Knowledge passed from one practitioner to another. The work demanded courage from everyone involved, including the patient, especially the patient. Religion also existed in pirate towns. That often surprises people. Churches stood in Nassau. They stood in Port Royal. Even rough settlements usually possessed places of worship. Sailors attended services before voyages. Some prayed sincerely, others perhaps more selectively. Storms possess an extraordinary ability to encourage spirituality. The sea humbled everyone, even pirates, perhaps especially pirates. No captain controlled hurricanes. No amount of stolen silver persuaded the wind to change direction. Nature remained wonderfully indifferent. Families lived ordinary lives amid extraordinary surroundings. Children attended simple schools when teachers could be found. Gardens supplied vegetables. Mothers baked bread. Fathers repaired fishing nets. Neighbors borrowed tools. People complained about prices. Dogs barked at strangers. Cats hunted rats around warehouses. Life continued. History remembers famous names. Daily life belonged mostly to forgotten people. Women operated boarding houses where visiting sailors rented beds. Others managed taverns after husbands died. Some owned small shops. Others became successful traders in their own right. The frontier offered opportunities rarely available within more rigid European societies. Not equality, certainly not, but flexibility. Practical communities often valued ability over convention. If someone successfully managed a business, customers cared remarkably little about expectations written thousands of miles away in London. The enslaved population formed another essential, though tragic, part of Caribbean life. Many colonies depended upon enslaved African labor. Some escaped. Pirate crews occasionally welcomed fugitives, sometimes from compassion, often from practicality. A skilled sailor remained valuable regardless of background. The pirate world could be unexpectedly inclusive. It could also remain brutally violent. Both realities existed simultaneously. History rarely offers comfortable simplicity. As evening deepens, lanterns appear one by one along the waterfront. The blacksmith finally extinguishes his forge. Fishing boats rest quietly beside warships. The smell of fresh bread gives way to roasting meat and tobacco smoke. Music begins again. Stories begin again. Tomorrow some ships will sail. Others will arrive. Life will continue. Because pirate havens were never simply collections of famous outlaws. They were living towns. Messy, loud, hopeful, dangerous, filled with ordinary people trying to earn ordinary livings in extraordinarily unusual places. Yet beyond the harbor, something has begun to change. Merchant companies are growing impatient. Insurance rates continue climbing. Governors complain more loudly. And across the Atlantic, the British Crown has finally decided that enough is enough. A new governor has already accepted an impossible assignment. His name is Woodes Rogers. He is not coming to negotiate. He is coming to end the Republic of Pirates forever. And the greatest pirate haven the Caribbean has ever known is about to discover that even the freest harbors cannot remain hidden forever. The treasure that never existed. The moon hangs low over Nassau Harbor. Its pale reflection trembles across the quiet water, broken only by the gentle movement of anchored ships. Most of the town has finally surrendered to sleep. The taverns that only hours ago overflowed with music now glow softly, through shuttered windows. Somewhere along the waterfront, a watchman slowly walks his rounds, his lantern swinging in a lazy rhythm. The Caribbean seems peaceful tonight, almost innocent. And somewhere, perhaps beneath an old palm tree or hidden inside a lonely sea cave, someone is probably imagining a pirate's treasure chest buried beneath the sand. It is one of history's most enduring images. A weathered map, a red X, gold coins, jewels sparkling beneath moonlight, a skeleton clutching forgotten secrets. It is also, unfortunately for generations of treasure hunters, almost entirely fiction. Pirates rarely buried treasure, not because they disliked dramatic gestures, because burying wealth made remarkably little sense. Imagine surviving months at sea, escaping hurricanes, outrunning warships, winning dangerous battles, finally reaching a safe harbor with your hard-earned fortune. Would your first instinct be to hide it beneath a random tree on an uninhabited island? Or spend it? History strongly suggests pirates preferred the second option. Enthusiastically, the famous image of buried treasure owes far more to 19th-century adventure novels than 18th-century reality. Writers such as Robert Louis Stevenson gave the world unforgettable stories filled with secret maps and hidden gold. Those stories became so successful that fiction slowly replaced history. The real Caribbean was considerably more practical. Pirates stole wealth because they needed it. Food cost money. Gunpowder cost money. Ships required endless repairs. Sails wore out. Cannons cracked. Crews expected payment. Rum, perhaps unsurprisingly, also required financial investment. Very little could simply be buried and forgotten. Instead, pirate wealth flowed constantly through Caribbean ports. Imagine a successful pirate crew returning to Nassau after several months at sea. The harbor would notice them long before they reached the docks. Lookouts spotted unfamiliar sails. Children ran through the streets, shouting the news. Merchants hurried toward the waterfront. Tavern owners smiled. Blacksmiths anticipated new customers. Almost everyone expected business. The captured cargo rarely consisted of glittering treasure chests. More often it looked surprisingly ordinary. Sugar, coffee, indigo, cotton, tobacco, silk, wine, flour, leather, iron tools, medicine, candles, barrels, cloth, sometimes livestock. History's most profitable cargoes were frequently the least exciting. A merchant ship carrying hundreds of barrels of sugar might be worth vastly more than one carrying a handful of jewels. Sugar, after all, could be sold almost immediately. It was one of the world's most valuable commodities. European demand seemed almost endless. Plantation owners grew rich producing it. Merchants grew rich transporting it. Pirates grew rich intercepting it. Everyone except the unfortunate original owner, naturally. The same applied to tobacco. By the early 18th century, smoking had become enormously fashionable across Europe. Ships loaded with tobacco represented floating fortunes. The leaves themselves occupied large amounts of space, smelled rather strongly, and looked thoroughly unimpressive. Yet merchants eagerly purchased them. The pirate captain cared little whether cargo looked glamorous, only whether someone would pay. Silk from Asia occasionally appeared aboard captured vessels. Spices, tea, coffee beans, fine clothing, furniture, musical instruments, even books. Pirates stole whatever possessed value. One inventory from a captured merchant vessel might include elegant silverware alongside sacks of beans and crates of nails. Civilization, it turns out, depends heavily upon nails. Without them, ships become remarkably inconvenient. The process of selling captured goods required discretion. Officially, buying stolen cargo remained illegal. Unofficially, many merchants displayed astonishing flexibility. Suppose a pirate captain arrived offering sugar at half the normal market price. The merchant faced an interesting ethical dilemma. Reject the cargo and watch a competitor become wealthy, or quietly complete the transaction while asking remarkably few questions. Commerce frequently chose silence. Money traveled astonishingly quickly through pirate havens. A captured cargo arrived. Merchants purchased it. Warehouse owners stored it. Ship captains transported it elsewhere. Shopkeepers sold supplies to the pirates. Pirates spent earnings in taverns, markets, and workshops. Within days, stolen wealth had become ordinary economic activity. Tracing its origins became almost impossible. Modern financial investigators would have developed impressive headaches. Pirates also captured money directly. Spanish silver coins became especially common. The famous pieces of 8 circulated throughout the Caribbean. Unlike modern paper currency, silver possessed value almost everywhere. A coin minted in Mexico might purchase supplies in Jamaica, wages in Boston, or cloth in Amsterdam. Silver crossed borders more easily than politicians. Many pirates preferred coins precisely because they required no explanation. Gold also appeared, less frequently than popular imagination suggests, but often enough to inspire legends. Jewels proved rarer still. Large shipments of precious stones existed, certainly, but ordinary merchant traffic usually consisted of practical goods rather than royal treasures. Most pirate fortunes looked rather less cinematic than Hollywood prefers. Consider Blackbeard, one of history's most successful pirates. Did he accumulate mountains of buried gold? Apparently not. When he died in 1718, authorities searched carefully for hidden wealth. They found surprisingly little. His riches had already circulated, spent, invested, shared, consumed, much like modern paychecks. Pirates also distributed treasure according to agreed articles. Unlike naval sailors receiving fixed wages, pirate crews generally divided profits into shares. The captain earned several portions. The quartermaster received additional compensation. Specialists such as carpenters or surgeons sometimes earned extra shares because their skills proved indispensable. Ordinary crew members still received meaningful amounts. Compared with merchant service, the system felt remarkably fair. Risk and reward remained closely connected. Of course, fortunes disappeared almost as rapidly as they appeared. A successful voyage might enrich everyone. The next expedition could end in disaster. Storms wrecked ships. Disease spread through crowded crews. Naval patrols captured entire expeditions. There were no guarantees. Perhaps that uncertainty explains pirate spending habits. Why save carefully for old age when the sea might claim tomorrow? Many chose enjoyment instead. Rum, fine clothing, jewelry, expensive weapons, lavish meals, music, celebrations. The future remained uncertain. The present seemed worth appreciating. Not everyone approved. Church leaders preached against extravagance. Governors condemned criminal wealth. Respectable merchants publicly criticized pirate behavior, then quietly accepted discounted cargo behind closed doors. Human beings have always possessed remarkable talents for separating public principles from private opportunities. One particularly fascinating profession thrived within pirate havens. Fences, not the wooden kind surrounding gardens. People specializing in converting stolen goods into respectable merchandise. They understood markets, maintained contacts, arranged transportation, negotiated prices. Without such intermediaries, piracy would have collapsed rapidly. Capturing cargo represented only half the challenge. Selling it mattered equally. The fences solved that problem. Some became extraordinarily wealthy. Remarkably few appear in adventure novels. Perhaps accountants seldom inspire thrilling fiction. Insurance companies in London noticed these developments with increasing alarm. Every successful pirate attack raised costs. Merchants demanded protection. Premiums climbed. Letters crossed the Atlantic describing growing losses. Commerce dislikes uncertainty. Governments began paying closer attention. Meanwhile, ordinary life in Nassau continued. Markets opened every morning. Children attended lessons. Carpenters repaired houses. Fishing boats left before dawn. Life persisted beneath the shadow of extraordinary events. One curious myth deserves mentioning. The famous pirate treasure map. Authentic maps certainly existed. Captains relied upon charts constantly. They recorded reefs, currents, anchorages, fresh water, dangerous shoals. Some contained coded notes understandable only to their owners. Yet maps leading to buried treasure remain extraordinarily rare. The sea itself served as the greatest vault. A hidden harbor mattered more than a hidden chest. Knowledge outweighed gold. Knowing where Spanish fleets sailed. Knowing which governor accepted bribes. Knowing where fresh water could be found after weeks at sea. Information often proved the most valuable treasure of all. Nassau became rich in precisely that commodity. Every tavern conversation, every merchant transaction, every arriving ship, every departing crew, all contributed fragments of knowledge. Successful captains assembled those fragments into opportunity. Perhaps that explains why pirate havens flourished for as long as they did. Not because they possessed magical treasure, because they possessed something far more practical. Networks, trust, markets, shipyards, information, communities. These invisible riches proved vastly more valuable than any chest filled with coins. Yet invisible wealth also attracts invisible enemies. Across the Atlantic, Britain's patience has nearly expired. The merchants have complained loudly enough. The insurers have calculated enough losses. Parliament has heard enough alarming reports. A decision has finally been made. A former privateer named Woodes Rogers has accepted one of the most dangerous assignments in the British Empire. His mission is breathtakingly simple. Sail to Nassau, destroy the pirate republic, restore royal authority, or die trying. As another peaceful Caribbean night settles over the harbor, the pirates know nothing of the fleet already preparing in England. They celebrate another profitable voyage. They count silver beneath candlelight. They laugh. They drink. They plan tomorrow's adventures. For this one quiet evening, the Republic of Pirates still believes its future stretches as endlessly as the sea itself. It does not yet realize that the tide has already begun to turn. The king sends a hunter. The sunrise over the Atlantic is almost painfully beautiful. The eastern horizon glows first with deep violet, then amber, then brilliant gold. Gentle swells roll endlessly across open water, carrying a small fleet westward toward the Caribbean. White sails fill with steady trade winds. The timbers of the ships creak softly, sounding almost like living creatures stretching after a long night's sleep. A sailor standing on deck might think only about breakfast. A captain might think about the weather. One passenger, however, thinks about pirates. Constantly. His name is Woodes Rogers. And without realizing it, nearly every pirate in Nassau has become part of his future. History enjoys irony. Few men were better suited to destroy the pirate republic than Woodes Rogers. Because before becoming a governor, he had been something remarkably close to a pirate himself. Not technically, of course. Officially, he had been a privateer, a perfectly respectable title when governments approved of your attacks. Like so many others of his generation, Rogers had spent years sailing dangerous waters under royal commission. He understood life at sea. He understood desperate sailors. He understood why so many honest men gradually became dishonest. Perhaps most importantly, he understood how pirates thought. That knowledge would prove priceless. Woodes Rogers had already lived an extraordinary life before ever setting foot in Nassau. He had circumnavigated the globe, captured valuable prizes, survived storms, fought sea battles, even rescued the Scottish sailor Alexander Selkirk, whose years stranded alone on a remote Pacific island later helped inspire the fictional character Robinson Crusoe. By the time Rogers returned to England, he was famous. Unfortunately, he was also deeply in debt. Privateering created fortunes. It also destroyed them. Expensive expeditions sometimes earned enormous profits. Others ended in financial disaster. Rogers discovered that even successful captains could become bankrupt. Life has always possessed an unfortunate sense of humor. Then opportunity arrived. The British government had finally decided something must be done about Nassau. The pirate republic had become impossible to ignore. Merchant companies demanded protection. Insurance costs continued climbing. Spanish diplomats complained endlessly. Even respectable colonial governors admitted the situation had become embarrassing. Imagine ruling the world's greatest naval empire while hundreds of pirates openly operated from one of your own colonies. It reflected rather poorly upon the administration. Someone needed to restore order, not merely through violence, through government. Rogers accepted the challenge. It was, by almost any reasonable standard, a terrifying assignment. The Bahamas possessed little money. Its defenses had deteriorated. The pirates outnumbered loyal officials. Many carried years of combat experience. Several commanded heavily armed ships. Others possessed friends throughout the Caribbean. Success seemed far from guaranteed. Still, the government gave Rogers something powerful: a royal pardon. King George I offered mercy to pirates willing to surrender voluntarily. The proposal was simple. Lay down your weapons. Swear loyalty to the crown. Receive forgiveness. Continue your lives peacefully. Anyone refusing would be hunted. It was an intelligent strategy. Rogers recognized something many politicians overlooked. Not every pirate loved piracy. Some had joined through desperation. Others through unemployment after the wars. Many simply wished to survive. Offer them a safe escape. And perhaps the pirate republic might collapse from within. The fleet carrying Rogers crossed the Atlantic steadily. Weeks passed. Life aboard remained disciplined. Sails adjusted. Decks scrubbed. Cannons inspected. Fresh water carefully rationed. The routines differed little from those aboard pirate vessels. The sea treated everyone equally. Whether king's officer or outlaw, every sailor obeyed the wind. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, Nassau continued celebrating. The taverns remained crowded. The shipyards echoed with hammers. Merchants purchased suspicious cargoes. Captains recruited crews. Children played along the beaches. No one knew a governor was approaching with royal authority folded carefully inside official documents. Information traveled slowly. The Atlantic remained vast. Rumors often arrived months before facts. Some captains heard whispers that Britain planned action. Others dismissed them. Governments had threatened pirates before. Little had happened. Why should this time differ? History often changes precisely when people stop expecting it. Among Nassau's pirate leaders, opinions divided. Benjamin Hornigold began reconsidering his future. Unlike younger captains, Hornigold had always viewed piracy pragmatically. He valued profit, stability, survival. A royal pardon looked increasingly attractive. Others disagreed violently. Foremost among them stood Charles Vane. If Hornigold represented moderation, Vane represented defiance. Charles Vane distrusted governments instinctively. Promises from kings meant little to him. Pardons sounded suspiciously like traps. Perhaps they were. Perhaps they were not. Vane intended to trust neither. He believed the Republic should fight. Many younger pirates admired his determination. Others quietly wondered whether challenging the British Empire indefinitely represented the wisest long-term investment. Not every disagreement ended politely. Arguments filled Nassau's taverns. Voices rose. Tempers flared. Old friendships strained beneath uncertain futures. Should they surrender? Should they resist? Should they leave before Rogers arrived? Every captain weighed the possibilities differently. The Pirate Republic, once united by common opportunity, now faced common uncertainty. Rogers, meanwhile, prepared carefully. He studied reports, learned names, examined maps. He understood Nassau's harbor, its defenses, its weaknesses. Unlike many officials in London, he refused to underestimate his opponents. These were experienced seamen. Some had fought naval battles against European warships. Others knew every reef surrounding the Bahamas. Treating them as ordinary criminals invited disaster. Respecting their abilities offered better chances. As the fleet neared the Caribbean, familiar signs appeared. Flying fish skipped across gentle waves. Warm trade winds replaced colder Atlantic air. The smell changed. Salt mixed with tropical vegetation carried from distant islands. The Caribbean welcomed newcomers gently, sometimes too gently. Many optimistic captains had mistaken beauty for safety. The pirates certainly had not. Back in Nassau, daily life continued almost normally. Fishermen repaired nets. Blacksmiths forged anchors. Women baked bread before sunrise. Children fetched water from wells. The routines of ordinary people rarely paused for approaching political change. One old tavern keeper supposedly remarked that governments came and went. Customers always needed rum. He was probably correct. Yet even ordinary citizens sensed something shifting. Merchants grew cautious. Some quietly moved valuables elsewhere. Ship owners postponed investments. The mood subtly changed. Hope mixed with anxiety. No one quite knew what tomorrow would bring. Then one morning, lookouts spotted sails. At first, only tiny white specks upon the eastern horizon. Nothing unusual. Ships arrived frequently. As hours passed, more sails appeared. Then more. Soon it became obvious. This was no ordinary merchant convoy. The harbor buzzed with nervous conversation. People climbed rooftops for better views. Captains studied the approaching fleet through spyglasses. Some faces paled. Others hardened. Charles Vane reportedly wasted little time. If the king's representative intended entering Nassau peacefully, Vane possessed another idea. As darkness fell, he prepared one of history's most dramatic gestures. An old captured ship was packed with combustible materials. Tar, wood, pitch, anything that burned enthusiastically. The vessel became a floating bonfire waiting only for a spark. A fire ship, one of naval warfare's oldest and most terrifying weapons. Imagine watching an unmanned ship completely engulfed in flames drifting slowly toward your anchored fleet. Smoke billows upward. The heat becomes unbearable. Explosions erupt as stored ammunition ignites. Every nearby vessel suddenly faces horrifying danger. That was precisely Vane's intention. If Rogers wished to enter Nassau, he would receive an unforgettable welcome. As midnight settles over the harbor, nervous silence replaces laughter. The tavern's empty earlier than usual. Lanterns burn late inside government buildings. Pirate captains meet privately. Some prepare to surrender. Others sharpen swords. Still others quietly load possessions aboard ships, ready to disappear into the endless maze of Caribbean islands before dawn. Beyond the reefs, Woodes Rogers waits patiently aboard his flagship. He knows tomorrow may decide everything. The Pirate Republic stands at a crossroads. One path leads toward peace, another toward war. By tomorrow evening, Nassau, and perhaps the entire Golden Age of Piracy, will never be the same again. The fall of Nassau. Dawn arrives beneath a sky the color of old parchment. For a few quiet moments, Nassau Harbor seems frozen between two worlds. The water remains perfectly calm. The anchored ships barely move. Even the seabirds appear strangely hesitant, circling silently above the masts instead of crying out as they usually do. The town is awake, but no one is behaving normally. Merchants who would ordinarily be arranging their market stalls instead stand along the waterfront, staring toward the sea. Children whisper instead of shouting. Blacksmiths delay lighting their forges. Even the taverns, so often alive before sunrise with sailors ending one night's drinking and beginning the next, remain unusually subdued. Everyone is watching the horizon. And there, just beyond the protective reefs, the King's fleet waits. Woodes Rogers has arrived. The Republic of Pirates has reached its greatest test. Charles Vane has no intention of welcoming the governor politely. If surrender is one option, Vane chooses the other. Throughout the previous evening, his crew worked feverishly aboard an aging captured vessel that had long since outlived its usefulness. Every spare piece of timber, every barrel of pitch, every length of tarred rope, everything capable of feeding flames was carried aboard. The ship itself became little more than an enormous floating torch waiting for someone to strike a match. Fire ships had terrified sailors for centuries. Wooden vessels feared fire almost more than enemy cannon. A cannonball might smash a mast. Fire could erase an entire fleet. As darkness finally gives way to morning, smoke begins rising. At first only a thin gray ribbon, then thicker, then darker. Moments later, flames burst upward. The abandoned vessel becomes a blazing inferno. The heat can be felt even from neighboring ships. Rigging burns first, then sails. Soon the entire hull glows orange against the pale morning sky. Vane's crew cuts the final lines. The burning ship begins drifting toward the narrow harbor entrance. Toward Rogers. Toward the waiting British fleet. Imagine standing aboard one of those naval vessels. You have crossed an ocean. Prepared carefully. Expected negotiations. Instead, an entire ship is sailing directly toward you while completely engulfed in flames. No sailor ever grows comfortable with that sight. Orders echo across the fleet. Anchors raised. Boats launched. Crews scramble. Some ships maneuver desperately away from the approaching inferno. Others prepare to tow burning debris clear before disaster spreads. The harbor fills with confusion. Thick smoke rolls across the water. Burning fragments drift through the air. The crackling of flames mixes with shouted commands. For several tense minutes, everything depends upon wind and current. Then, the fire ship drifts harmlessly past. Close enough to terrify. Far enough to avoid catastrophe. Charles Vane has made his point. He will not surrender. But he has also done something equally important. While the British fleet struggles with the burning vessel, Vane escapes. His own ship slips through the confusion. Dark sails disappear beyond the reefs. One of Nassau's most determined defenders has chosen flight over hopeless battle. History will judge that decision differently depending upon whom one asks. Some called it courage. Others called it abandonment. Perhaps it contained a little of both. When daylight fully returns, Rogers finally enters Nassau Harbor. Slowly, carefully. The British ships pass beneath weathered fortifications that, despite years of neglect, still overlook the anchorage. Cannons remain silent. No great naval battle unfolds. No dramatic exchange of broadsides shakes the harbor. The pirate republic does not end with an explosion. It ends with hesitation. Many pirates have already accepted reality. The king's pardon offers something extraordinarily valuable. A future. Men who had spent years expecting violent deaths suddenly glimpse another possibility. A quiet life. A farm. Merchant service. Perhaps even respectability. Stranger transformations have happened. Benjamin Hornigold reaches his decision. He accepts the royal pardon. For years he had helped build Nassau into the greatest pirate haven in the Atlantic. Now he helps dismantle it. Some former companions consider him a traitor. Others quietly understand. Hornigold has always preferred survival over glory. History remembers dramatic last stands. Practical men usually live longer. Dozens of pirates step forward. Weapons surrendered. Names recorded. Oaths sworn. The ceremony is surprisingly orderly. One by one, former outlaws place themselves under royal mercy. Woodes Rogers watches carefully. He understands appearances matter. The pardon must seem genuine. If the first men accepting mercy are imprisoned or executed, no one else will ever surrender. Trust, once broken, rarely returns. So Rogers keeps his word. Those who honestly abandon piracy receive forgiveness. The policy works. At least initially. Nassau begins changing almost immediately. Royal flags replace pirate banners. Government offices reopen. The neglected fortifications receive long overdue repairs. Soldiers patrol streets that for years had largely governed themselves. Merchants suddenly discover the advantages of conducting business openly rather than discreetly. Some smile. Others miss the astonishing profits piracy had once delivered. The economy begins transforming. Gradually, unevenly, but undeniably. The shipyards continue operating. Only their customers slowly change. Merchant vessels replace pirate sloops. Fishing boats once again outnumber heavily armed raiders. Families begin arriving from other British colonies. Permanent homes replace temporary shelters. Gardens expand. Schools reopen. Church attendance increases. Whether because of renewed faith or simple political caution remains uncertain. The taverns remain. Of course they do. History has never successfully eliminated taverns. Their conversations simply become quieter whenever government officials enter. Woodes Rogers proves remarkably energetic. He reorganizes administration, strengthens defenses, encourages legitimate commerce, requests additional supplies from England. Not all requests receive immediate answers. The British Empire still possesses an astonishing talent for expecting distant colonies to solve complicated problems with remarkably limited budgets. Some things never change. Yet Rogers also faces enormous difficulties. Food remains scarce. Money remains scarce. Disease continues spreading through tropical settlements. Many buildings require rebuilding. The Bahamas possess little agricultural land. Almost everything useful must arrive by sea. And pirates have not disappeared. Far from it. Many captains reject the pardon entirely. Charles Vane remains free. So do numerous others. They simply relocate. Instead of gathering openly at Nassau, they scatter across the Caribbean. Some hide among the Exuma Islands. Others seek refuge in Cuba. A few sail north toward the Carolinas. Piracy has lost its capital. It has not lost its practitioners. One particularly famous pirate quietly leaves Nassau during these uncertain days. Edward Teach. Blackbeard. Unlike Vane, he chooses a more subtle path. He accepts the pardon, at least officially, for a brief time. Then, almost immediately returns to piracy. Some habits prove remarkably difficult to abandon, especially profitable ones. Rogers understands perfectly. A pardon only succeeds if accompanied by enforcement. Mercy without consequences invites abuse. Consequences without mercy invite endless resistance. Balancing the two becomes his greatest challenge. Not everyone in Nassau welcomes these changes. Shopkeepers who had prospered selling discounted cargo watch business decline. Tavern owners lose extravagant pirate spending. Ship chandlers notice fewer heavily armed vessels requiring supplies. Economic transitions always create winners and losers. The Pirate Republic had generated immense wealth. It had also generated constant instability. Now stability returns, along with smaller profits. Some residents quietly wonder whether peace is worth the difference. Others need only remember the constant fear of sudden violence. Perspective often depends upon experience. As weeks become months, the harbor slowly changes appearance. The forest of pirate masts grows thinner. Royal Navy vessels become familiar sights. Children growing up in Nassau begin hearing stories about pirates rather than meeting them every afternoon at the docks. Memory begins replacing reality. The transformation feels almost unbelievable. Only a short time earlier, this had been the beating heart of Atlantic piracy. Now, it is becoming another British colonial town. Orderly, predictable, governed, mostly. Yet history rarely ends so neatly. Far beyond Nassau, several of the greatest pirate captains remain at large. Blackbeard still commands powerful ships. Charles Vane refuses surrender. Calico Jack has not yet become famous. And Bonny and Mary Red have scarcely begun writing their extraordinary chapter. The Golden Age has been wounded, not destroyed. The final battles remain ahead. As evening settles over Nassau once more, the harbor looks strangely peaceful. British sentries stand where pirate lookouts once watched. Church bells ring softly across the town. Fishing boats return with the day's catch. Smoke rises from ordinary kitchens instead of emergency signal fires. Life continues. Perhaps quieter than before. Perhaps safer. The Republic of Pirates has fallen. Not with one glorious battle. Not with a legendary last stand. But with pardons, compromise, weariness, and the slow realization that no hidden harbor remains invisible forever. Still, across the darkening Caribbean Sea, another black flag rises against the sunset. The pirate age is not yet over. Its most famous and most violent final years are only just beginning. The last havens of the black flag. Night settles gently over the Caribbean. The stars return one by one, reflected upon a sea so calm that the horizon almost disappears. Somewhere far offshore, a lone ship sails without lanterns. Only the faint silhouette of its masts interrupts the meeting of ocean and sky. No music drifts across the water. No crowded harbor welcomes its arrival. No governor waits with official documents. No merchants prepare their warehouses. The great pirate havens are disappearing. And for the first time in many years, the pirates themselves are becoming wanderers. The fall of Nassau did not end piracy. It ended certainty. For nearly 2 decades, men who sailed beneath the black flag had enjoyed something remarkably rare. A home. Not always a comfortable one. Not always a peaceful one. But a place where damaged ships could be repaired, stolen cargo could be sold, wounded sailors could recover, and familiar faces waited beside familiar taverns. Now those places were vanishing. The sea suddenly felt much larger. A pirate captain fleeing Nassau faced an uncomfortable question. Where now? The Caribbean still offered countless islands. Tiny cays hidden behind coral reefs. Mangrove swamps where shallow water discouraged larger naval vessels. Remote bays known only to experienced pilots. Small settlements willing to overlook inconvenient details in exchange for profitable trade. These became the final refuges of the Golden Age. Unlike Nassau or Port Royal, they possessed no grand ambitions. No bustling marketplaces. No crowded shipyards. Only temporary shelter. A lonely beach where fresh water could be gathered. A hidden anchorage protected by reefs. Perhaps a small fishing village willing to exchange vegetables for silver. Life became quieter, harder, more uncertain. The Great Pirate Republic had allowed captains to think beyond tomorrow. Now survival once again became the principal concern. The Royal Navy had learned valuable lessons. For years, European governments treated piracy as little more than an occasional nuisance. Now they understood something far more troubling. Pirates thrived because they possessed infrastructure. Harbors, markets, communities. Destroy those foundations, and piracy became infinitely more difficult. So naval patrols multiplied. Warships appeared in places once considered perfectly safe. Governors cooperated more closely than before. Merchant convoys received armed escorts. Even colonial officials who had quietly accepted pirate profits suddenly discovered renewed enthusiasm for enforcing the law. Remarkable what royal attention can accomplish. One by one, the hidden ports grew nervous. A merchant willing to purchase suspicious cargo yesterday might refuse today. Not because his conscience had changed, because the risks had. The economics of piracy slowly shifted. Capturing ships remained possible. Selling their cargo became increasingly complicated. Without reliable markets, stolen sugar quickly became little more than sticky barrels occupying valuable deck space. Practical difficulties often defeat great adventures more effectively than heroic battles. Charles Vane refused surrender. His reputation for stubbornness had become legendary. After escaping Nassau aboard his ship Ranger, he continued raiding merchant vessels throughout the Caribbean. Vane represented something increasingly uncommon: absolute defiance. Many former pirates had accepted pardons. Others quietly retired. Vane rejected compromise entirely. He remained convinced that freedom justified endless resistance. There is something undeniably admirable about unwavering conviction. There is also something undeniably dangerous. History frequently struggles to distinguish between the two. His crews continued living the familiar rhythm of pirate life. Weeks at sea, short visits to isolated anchorages, constant movement, fresh water whenever possible, fresh food whenever fortune smiled, always watching the horizon, always prepared to flee. A hidden bay in Cuba today, a lonely island in the Caymans tomorrow, perhaps the Mosquito Coast next month. The Caribbean became their home precisely because nowhere within it could remain home for very long. The old havens had taught pirates another valuable lesson. Knowledge mattered more than force. Experienced pilots knew passages through reefs invisible to outsiders. They recognized changing tides, understood seasonal winds, remembered tiny springs where fresh water bubbled from limestone beneath thick forests. Such knowledge could not be stolen. It had to be learned, usually over many years. Young sailors listened carefully whenever older captains described forgotten anchorages. Many of those places have long since vanished beneath modern development. Others remain almost unchanged. Quiet beaches, hidden coves, places where waves still whisper against white sand exactly as they did 3 centuries ago. If one stands there at sunset, it is surprisingly easy to imagine a weather-beaten sloop anchored offshore. Not because ghosts linger, but because geography remembers. The sea changes remarkably slowly. One particularly important refuge lay along the coast of North Carolina. The shallow sounds behind the outer banks formed another natural maze. Sandbars shifted constantly. Channels confused unfamiliar navigators. Local pilots possessed tremendous advantages. It was here that Edward Teach, Blackbeard, would make one of history's most consequential decisions. Instead of endlessly wandering the Caribbean, he sought something closer to legitimacy, or perhaps merely convenience. He accepted another royal pardon. Again, officially abandoning piracy. Again, history occasionally develops a dry sense of humor. Blackbeard established connections with colonial officials, married locally, conducted business. Some suspected he quietly continued illegal trading while maintaining respectable appearances. Evidence suggests those suspicions were well-founded. The lines separating pirate from merchant remained wonderfully blurry, especially when profits remained attractive. Many colonial governors faced impossible choices: strictly enforce every regulation, and cripple local commerce, or quietly tolerate certain activities and encourage piracy. Some chose principle, others chose prosperity. Quite a few attempted both simultaneously, with predictable results. Farther south, Spanish authorities strengthened coastal defenses. French colonies increased patrols. Dutch merchants became more cautious. The entire Atlantic world slowly adapted. Insurance companies revised policies. Merchant captains altered routes. Convoys became larger. Pirate attacks still occurred, They simply required greater effort. The age of easy opportunities had ended. Even pirate crews began changing. Earlier generations often consisted largely of unemployed privateers, veterans trained during European wars. As years passed, replacements possessed less formal experience. The remarkable concentration of skilled sailors that had created the Golden Age gradually dispersed. Without Nassau gathering everyone together, cooperation weakened. Competition increased. Captains operated independently. Old alliances faded. Trust became scarcer. The sea, indifferent as always, continued shaping every decision. Hurricanes still arrived each summer. Storms still shattered careless ships. Coral reefs remained patient. Disease remained relentless. Nature never cared whether a vessel flew a royal ensign or a black flag. It judged only preparation. Many lonely anchorages carried unexpected beauty. Imagine a hidden bay surrounded by dense tropical forest. Crystal clear water laps gently against a deserted beach. Parrots call somewhere high among the trees. Freshwater trickles from rocks into a quiet pool. A pirate crew lands cautiously. Some refill barrels. Others gather fruit. Carpenters inspect the hull. A surgeon checks recovering patients beneath the shade of palms. For a single peaceful afternoon, they almost resemble ordinary travelers. Then sails appear on the horizon. Everything changes. The boats launch immediately. Campfires extinguished. Footprints washed away by incoming tide. Within minutes, the beach becomes empty once more. Only drifting smoke hints that anyone had ever visited. This constant movement exhausted everyone. Even successful captains. Humans naturally seek permanence. A familiar bed. Reliable neighbors. Predictable mornings. Pirates increasingly possessed none of these. The hidden ports offered safety. Never belonging. As another Caribbean evening deepens, scattered pirate ships rest in isolated coves across hundreds of miles of coastline. Each captain studies different charts. Each wonders where tomorrow's supplies will come from. Each listens carefully for distant cannon fire carried across still water. The Republic of Pirates has become a memory. Now only fragments remain. Fragments that the Royal Navy is methodically hunting down. And somewhere off the coast of North Carolina, a famous captain with a smoking beard is about to discover that legends cannot always outrun determined men. The final voyage of Blackbeard is drawing near. With it will come one of the most dramatic endings in all of pirate history. Blackbeard's last battle. The morning mist clings to the water like a thin gray blanket. It drifts lazily across the quiet inlets of North Carolina, softening the outlines of distant trees until the shoreline appears almost dreamlike. The tide rises gently through narrow channels known only to local fishermen, pilots, and a handful of sailors who have spent enough years in these waters to trust memory more than maps. Somewhere within that mist, a pirate is finishing breakfast. Edward Teach, Blackbeard, has no reason to believe this morning will be remembered for centuries. The air is warm. The sea is calm. His ship rocks gently at anchor. It feels like any other day. History often prefers ordinary mornings before extraordinary endings. By the autumn of 1718, Blackbeard's world had grown noticeably smaller. The bustling days of Nassau had passed. The great pirate fleets had scattered. Many old companions accepted pardons. Others disappeared into anonymous merchant service. Some had already been captured. Some had already died. Blackbeard himself had attempted something resembling retirement, or perhaps semi-retirement. The distinction depended largely upon whom one asked. Officially, he had accepted the king's pardon. Unofficially, numerous merchant captains continued reporting suspicious encounters remarkably close to wherever Edward Teach happened to be living. Colonial officials received increasingly uncomfortable complaints. Trade suffered. Merchants demanded protection. The governor of Virginia, Alexander Spotswood, eventually decided enough was enough. Interestingly, Blackbeard was not operating within Virginia. He lived in neighboring North Carolina. Jurisdiction, however, sometimes becomes wonderfully flexible when politics grows impatient. Spotswood organized an expedition anyway. His chosen commander was a young Royal Navy lieutenant named Robert Maynard. Maynard faced a difficult assignment. Blackbeard commanded experienced sailors. The waters favored local knowledge. Large warships could not safely navigate many shallow channels. So Maynard adapted. Instead of heavy naval vessels, he selected 2 smaller sloops. Light, fast, capable of pursuing pirates into waters where larger ships dared not follow. It was a sensible decision. History often rewards flexibility. The expedition sailed quietly. No grand announcements. No elaborate ceremony. Only careful planning and determined purpose. Maynard understood something important. Surprise offered his greatest advantage. Blackbeard, despite his fearsome reputation, remained human. Humans become vulnerable when they believe danger lies elsewhere. Meanwhile, aboard Blackbeard's ship, life continued much as always. The crew repaired rigging, cooked meals, cleaned weapons, played cards, told exaggerated stories that somehow became even more exaggerated with every retelling. Some men probably believed piracy's greatest days had already passed. Others likely imagined many profitable years still ahead. The future rarely announces itself clearly. On the evening before the battle, Blackbeard reportedly entertained visitors aboard his vessel. There was drinking, conversation, laughter, perhaps music. Nothing suggested tomorrow would be different. If he felt concern, he concealed it well. That had always been one of his greatest talents. Project confidence, even when uncertainty waited just beyond the horizon. Before dawn on November 22nd, 1718, Maynard's little flotilla entered the shallow waters of Ocracoke Inlet. Navigation proved difficult. Sandbars shifted beneath the tide. Charts offered only limited guidance. Every sailor watched the water anxiously. One careless mistake could leave a ship hopelessly stranded. The pirates noticed movement. Lookouts called warnings. Orders echoed across the decks. Anchors raised. Cannons prepared. The quiet morning disappeared beneath urgent activity. Blackbeard's first advantage came from geography. Maynard's leading vessels grounded briefly upon a sandbar. For several tense moments, they became easy targets. The pirates opened fire. Cannon smoke rolled across the water. Iron shots smashed into wooden hulls. Splinters exploded through the air. Anyone who has never witnessed wooden ships exchanging cannon fire might imagine neat holes appearing in the sides. Reality proved considerably more horrifying. Oak shattered violently. Flying splinters often caused more injuries than cannonballs themselves. Wood became deadly shrapnel. Men fell. Some cried out. Others never had the opportunity. Maynard's situation looked grim. He possessed fewer men, smaller ships, limited room to maneuver. Blackbeard probably believed victory inevitable. That confidence would become his greatest mistake. Recognizing his disadvantage, Maynard devised a remarkably simple deception. He ordered most of his surviving crew below deck. From Blackbeard's perspective, the enemy suddenly appeared almost defeated. Only a handful of sailors remained visible. Perhaps the cannon fire had already done its work. Perhaps one final boarding action would finish everything. Blackbeard made his decision. He ordered his men alongside. Hooks flew through the air. The ships crashed together. Planks bridged the narrow gap between them. Pirates surged forward with pistols, cutlasses, and boarding axes. For a brief moment, everything unfolded exactly as Blackbeard expected. Then, the hatches burst open. Maynard's hidden sailors poured onto the deck. The battle instantly became close, brutal, and chaotic. Gone were careful maneuvers. Gone were distant cannon exchanges. Now men fought face to face. Smoke filled the air. Pistols fired at astonishingly short range. Steel clashed against steel. Commands dissolved into shouting. The decks became dangerously slippery beneath spilled seawater and blood. Blackbeard himself fought with extraordinary determination. Contemporary accounts describe him wielding multiple pistols before drawing his sword. He had always cultivated the image of fearless leadership. Now he lived it. Maynard later claimed they eventually confronted one another directly. The two men exchanged pistol fire. Both survived. Then swords. Imagine the scene. The smoke. The noise. The smell of burned powder. The deck rolling gently beneath every step. Around them, dozens of men struggled for survival. History remembers these moments as grand duels. Reality lasted only seconds. Chaos rarely pauses for elegance. Blackbeard fought fiercely. Witnesses later reported that he received numerous wounds before finally collapsing. The exact number has become legendary. 5 gunshot wounds. More than 20 sword cuts. Perhaps. Perhaps not. Stories naturally grow with time. What seems beyond serious dispute is this. He refused to surrender. Eventually, the great pirate fell. Silence did not follow immediately. The battle continued until the remaining pirates recognized resistance had become hopeless. One by one, weapons dropped. Hands raised. The smoke slowly cleared. The sea resumed its endless breathing. Edward Teach was dead. Maynard faced an unpleasant but common naval custom. Proof. Governments preferred evidence, especially when famous enemies died. Blackbeard's head was severed and suspended beneath the bowsprit of Maynard's ship during the return voyage. Modern readers understandably find this shocking. 18th century authorities considered it practical. A visible warning. Piracy ended here. Or so they hoped. Legends, however, refused such simple endings. Almost immediately, stories began spreading. Some claimed Blackbeard's headless body swam around the ship several times before sinking. Others insisted his ghost haunted the waters of Ocracoke. Fishermen reported strange lights, mysterious voices, phantom ships emerging from fog. None can be verified. All became part of the legend. Perhaps people simply found it difficult to believe someone who had seemed larger than life could die like any ordinary man. Legends rarely enjoy ordinary conclusions. The death of Blackbeard echoed throughout the Atlantic. Merchants celebrated. Governors congratulated one another. Insurance companies undoubtedly breathed easier. Pirates reacted differently. Some mourned. Some quietly accepted the changing times. Others understood immediately. If Blackbeard could be hunted down, anyone could. The sea itself seemed strangely unchanged. The same gentle waves rolled across Ocracoke Inlet. The same seabirds circled overhead. The same wind whispered through coastal grasses. Nature acknowledged no victory, no defeat, only another sunrise, another tide, another day. Yet something profound had shifted. The most famous pirate of the Golden Age was gone. The Republic had fallen. Its greatest symbol had disappeared beneath quiet coastal waters. Only a handful of determined captains still carried the black flag. Their world was shrinking rapidly. And among those remaining were 2 figures whose story would become one of piracy's most unexpected chapters. A young captain named John Rackham, and 2 women who would forever challenge nearly every assumption about life aboard pirate ships. And Bonny and Mary Red. Their remarkable story marks one of the final acts in the long history of the Caribbean's hidden pirate havens. And Bonny, Mary Read, and the last days of the pirate havens. The sea is quiet again. Not because danger has disappeared, because there are fewer ships left to make noise. The great harbors that once echoed with hammer blows, drunken songs, arguments over prize money, and the endless creaking of rigging have grown strangely calm. Nassau now flies the king's colors. Port Royal has become more respectable than infamous. Tortuga has faded into memory, spoken of more often than visited. The Caribbean has not changed, only the people upon it. Yet somewhere beyond the horizon, beneath the same trade winds that once carried Henry Morgan and Blackbeard, another small pirate sloop still slips through the waves. Its captain is not famous. Not yet. His name is John Rackham. History remembers him by a nickname, Calico Jack. Not because he commanded the largest fleet. Not because he captured extraordinary treasure. Simply because he preferred brightly colored calico clothing instead of the darker, more practical garments worn by most sailors. It is somehow comforting that history occasionally remembers people for their fashion choices. Compared to many famous captains, Rackham seemed almost ordinary. He lacked Blackbeard's terrifying presence. He lacked Henry Morgan's strategic brilliance. He lacked Charles Vane's stubborn determination. What he possessed instead was charm, and perhaps remarkable luck, at least for a while. Rackham first entered pirate history under Charles Vane. Serving as quartermaster, he had already demonstrated leadership and gained the respect of many sailors. But disagreements gradually emerged. When Vane chose to avoid battle with a powerful French warship rather than risk destruction, many members of the crew considered the decision cowardly. The articles governing pirate crews allowed something extraordinary. They voted. And the vote removed Charles Vane from command. Rackham became captain. Few organizations in the early 18th century replaced leaders by popular election. Pirate crews occasionally did. Again, not because they were philosophers. Because survival depended upon confidence. A captain who no longer inspired confidence became dangerous. Rackham inherited more than a ship. He inherited a changing world. By 1719 and 1720, piracy had become increasingly difficult. Royal Navy patrols multiplied. Governors cooperated. Safe harbors disappeared. Every voyage involved greater risk. Finding somewhere to sell captured cargo became an adventure almost equal to capturing it in the first place. It was during these uncertain years that Rackham met Bonny. Anne's life before piracy already seemed unusual by the standards of the time. Born in Ireland, she traveled to the American colonies while still young. Accounts differ regarding the details of her early years. History has left frustrating gaps. What seems certain is that she possessed a fiercely independent personality. One contemporary described her as strong-willed. Others used rather less flattering language. Women who refused obedience frequently received such descriptions, and eventually married a small-time sailor named James Bonny. The marriage proved unhappy. Very unhappy. Then she met Calico Jack. Whether it was romance, adventure, dissatisfaction, or some complicated combination of all three, and left her old life behind. She boarded Rackham's ship. Few decisions have echoed through pirate history quite so loudly. Pirate crews rarely welcomed women. Not because women lacked courage. Because sailors carried endless superstitions. Many believed women aboard ship brought terrible luck. Storms, shipwrecks, mutiny. Almost any disaster could somehow be blamed upon female passengers. Superstition has always possessed remarkable flexibility, and ignored such nonsense completely. She dressed as necessary, worked alongside the crew, fought when required, earned respect the difficult way, through competence. Not long afterward, another remarkable figure joined the crew, Mary Red. Mary's story feels almost unbelievable, yet contemporary evidence supports much of it. As a child, she reportedly disguised herself as a boy to secure inheritance payments intended for a deceased brother. The disguise continued for years. She worked aboard ships, served as a soldier, fought in European wars, only occasionally revealing her identity. Imagine maintaining such a secret for so long. Life itself became a performance. Eventually, she reached the Caribbean. Eventually, she encountered pirates. Eventually, she joined Rackham. According to later accounts, and initially believed Mary actually was a young man. Only after discovering the truth did the two women become close companions. Whether every detail survives accurately, no one can say. The central reality remains astonishing enough. Two of the most famous pirates in history were women sailing aboard the same small vessel. Their presence challenged nearly every expectation of 18th century society. Not merely because they fought, because they belonged. Contemporary witnesses repeatedly noted that Anne and Mary participated fully during combat. They loaded weapons, fired pistols, handled cutlasses, shouted orders, faced danger beside everyone else. Some accounts even suggest they displayed greater determination than many male crewmates. Whether entirely accurate or somewhat exaggerated, such stories reveal something important. Respect aboard pirate ships often depended less upon background than behavior. The sea remained wonderfully indifferent to social expectations. Storms never paused to ask whether someone belonged. Neither did cannon fire. Life aboard Rackham's ship proved modest compared with Blackbeard's enormous flagship. The vessel carried fewer men, fewer cannons, less prestige. The days of commanding entire squadrons had largely ended. Now piracy resembled survival. Strike quickly, disappear immediately, avoid unnecessary battles, seek isolated anchorages, repair constantly, remain invisible whenever possible. The hidden havens of the Caribbean became increasingly important. Small mangrove creeks, remote Bahamian cays, lonely beaches along Cuba, freshwater springs known only through whispered directions exchanged in taverns years earlier. The old republic no longer existed. Only fragments remained. Fragments remembered by those who had once called Nassau home. As always, ordinary life continued even during extraordinary times. Someone still baked bread before dawn. Someone still mended fishing nets. Someone still carved boats from local cedar. Pirates passed through these quiet communities like restless ghosts, arriving suddenly, leaving quickly, never certain they would return. The Royal Navy refused to relent. Success against Blackbeard encouraged further action. Colonial governors grew increasingly confident. Rewards for capturing pirates rose. Private citizens sometimes joined the hunt. Money possesses remarkable persuasive powers. In October 1720, Rackham's luck finally failed. Off the coast of Jamaica, a pirate hunting vessel under Captain Jonathan Barnett located Rackham's sloop. Night had already fallen. The sea rolled gently beneath dark skies. Barnett demanded surrender. Rackham refused. A brief battle followed. Not a great naval engagement. Not an epic clash between mighty fleets. Simply one exhausted pirate crew facing opponents who finally possessed the advantage. Contemporary accounts contain one haunting detail. Many of Rackham's crew had reportedly been drinking heavily when the attack began. Alcohol had always flowed freely through pirate culture. On this night, it proved disastrous. Barnett's men boarded successfully. Resistance collapsed quickly. According to several witnesses, and Bonny and Mary Red fought fiercely while some of their companions hid below deck. One later story, whether entirely true or not, captures and spirit perfectly. As Rackham awaited execution, she reportedly visited him in prison. Her final words became legendary. "If you had fought like a man, you need not have been hanged like a dog." History cannot fully verify the exact wording. It remembers the sentiment. Calico Jack was executed in November 1720. His body was displayed publicly as a warning. Another familiar ritual of the age. And Bonny and Mary Red escaped immediate execution because both claimed to be pregnant. Under English law, this delayed their sentences. Mary Red died in prison, likely from illness, before any execution occurred. And Bonny simply disappears. No reliable record tells us exactly what happened afterward. Perhaps her wealthy family secured her release. Perhaps she remarried. Perhaps she lived quietly into old age under another name. History leaves the door slightly open. Sometimes mysteries survive because reality proved too ordinary to document. Sometimes because no one thought future generations would care. Today, millions do. With Rackham's capture, the Golden Age of Piracy entered its final chapter. The famous hidden ports still existed physically. The reefs remained. The mangrove swamps remained. The quiet anchorages remained. But the community that had once connected them was gone. The black flag still appeared occasionally upon distant horizons. Each appearance became rarer. Soon even those vanished. The Caribbean belonged once more to empires. At least officially. The sea, however, remembered everything. Its tides still washed against the same beaches where pirate ships once anchored. Its reefs still guarded forgotten passages. Its winds still followed ancient trade routes known by generations of sailors long before governments drew borders upon maps. The hidden ports never truly disappeared. They simply became quiet again, waiting beneath the stars, waiting beneath the palms, waiting for history to become legend, and for legend to become story. Ghost harbors beneath the Caribbean sun. Morning returns to the Caribbean as it always has. Long before human beings drew maps or named islands, sunlight spilled across these waters in exactly the same way. It crept over coral reefs glowing pale beneath the surface. It warmed mangrove roots tangled like ancient fingers in shallow lagoons. It painted white beaches with long golden shadows before the tropical heat slowly claimed another day. The sea remembers no kings. It remembers no empires. It remembers only tides. If you were to sail through the Bahamas today in a small wooden boat, away from the crowded cruise ports and the modern marinas, there are still places where the world becomes strangely quiet. The engine falls silent. The wind becomes your only companion. The water turns so clear that every ripple of white sand on the seabed seems close enough to touch. An osprey circles overhead. Tiny fish scatter between coral heads. Nothing moves except the sea itself. And for just a moment, you understand why pirates chose these places. Not because they were dramatic. Because they disappeared. A hidden harbor did not need towering cliffs. It needed invisibility. Many of the greatest pirate anchorages would look disappointingly ordinary to modern treasure hunters. No stone fortresses. No enormous caves overflowing with gold. Only narrow channels twisting through mangrove forests. Protected coves hidden behind reefs. Freshwater springs bubbling quietly beneath limestone. Everything a sailor needed. Nothing that would attract unwanted attention. The Caribbean excelled at such places. Its geography became piracy's greatest ally. A naval captain commanding a magnificent 70-gun warship might control open water with absolute confidence. But ask that same captain to chase a shallow draft pirate sloop through a maze of coral reefs. Suddenly experience mattered less than local knowledge. Large ships grounded easily. Small vessels danced through passages barely wider than their own hulls. Nature itself became the pirate's fortress. One famous anchorage lay among the Exuma Cays. Stretching like a chain of emeralds across brilliant turquoise water, these islands created countless sheltered passages invisible from the open sea. A ship could anchor peacefully behind one island while another vessel passed only a mile away without ever realizing anyone was there. The silence must have felt extraordinary. Imagine dropping anchor after months of pursuit. No cannon smoke. No shouting. Only gentle waves tapping softly against the hull. Crew members lowering boats. Fresh water collected. Fishing lines cast over the side. Carpenters inspecting damaged planks while seabirds wheeled lazily overhead. For a few precious days, life almost resembled peace. Almost. Because hidden harbors offered only temporary safety. Never certainty. Every unfamiliar sail on the horizon forced difficult decisions. Stay? Hide? Run? The answer changed constantly. Some pirate crews became remarkably skilled at vanishing. They extinguished cooking fires before smoke became visible. Camouflaged boats beneath mangrove branches. Anchored where overhanging trees concealed masts from distant observers. Even footprints upon beaches disappeared beneath the evening tide. The Caribbean itself assisted their escape. Rainstorms arrived suddenly. Fog occasionally rolled across calm morning water. Hurricanes completely transformed coastlines. Entire channels shifted after major storms. Charts became outdated astonishingly quickly. Local pilots remained priceless. Many of these pilots never became pirates themselves. Instead, they guided ships through dangerous waters. Some worked honestly. Others accepted payment from whoever happened to ask first. Morality often became surprisingly flexible where survival depended upon maritime trade. Fishermen possessed another kind of knowledge. They recognized seasonal fish migrations, understood tides, knew where turtles nested, remembered hidden freshwater pools inland from isolated beaches. Pirate captains frequently relied upon such local expertise. Not every useful ally carried a cutlass. Some carried fishing nets. Others carried memory. One curious feature united nearly every pirate haven: fresh water. Without it, no anchorage mattered. Ships consumed astonishing amounts of drinking water. Barrels spoiled. Leaks developed. Algae grew. Weeks at sea turned even the cleanest water unpleasant. Finding reliable springs became essential. Many famous anchorages existed primarily because fresh water flowed nearby. A tiny spring hidden beneath tropical forest could sustain dozens of ships. Lose access to that spring. The harbor immediately lost much of its value. Simple geography shaped extraordinary history. Food presented similar challenges. Pirates rarely carried enough provisions for endless voyages. Eventually, they required fresh vegetables, fruit, fish, game, sometimes livestock obtained through trade, sometimes through considerably less polite methods. Small islands often supported wild pigs descended from animals abandoned decades earlier by earlier European expeditions. Goats multiplied rapidly. Sea turtles provided meat. Conch and lobster filled shallow waters. Nature offered generous assistance, provided one understood where to look. Many hidden harbors also became accidental meeting places. One pirate sloop might arrive seeking repairs, another searching for water. A merchant captain quietly hoping to purchase unusual cargo. News spread quickly. Who had been captured? Which governor accepted bribes? Where had the latest Spanish convoy sailed? Information traveled from ship to ship long before newspapers could ever hope to compete. The sea became its own communication network. Stories changed slightly with every retelling. Naturally, one naval patrol became 3. One wealthy merchant ship became an entire treasure fleet. One successful escape became an impossible miracle. Sailors have always appreciated improving perfectly adequate stories. Around evening campfires on lonely beaches, legends quietly grew. Someone spoke of Blackbeard's final battle. Another remembered Henry Morgan's great expeditions. Older sailors described Nassau before the British arrived. Young listeners stared into the flames, imagining they had missed the greatest age in history. Perhaps they had. Or perhaps every generation imagines the previous one enjoyed grander adventures. Human beings possess remarkable nostalgia for times they never experienced. Not every hidden harbor belonged exclusively to pirates. Runaway enslaved people established independent communities in remote coastal regions throughout the Caribbean. Known in various places as Maroons, these settlements often occupied terrain deliberately difficult to reach. Dense forests, mountain valleys, mangrove swamps. Isolation became protection. Some pirate crews traded peacefully with such communities. Others avoided them entirely. Occasionally they fought. The Caribbean contained countless overlapping worlds rarely acknowledged by imperial maps. Indigenous knowledge survived in many of these landscapes as well. European sailors often relied upon routes, anchorages, and survival techniques first understood by the island's original inhabitants. History frequently celebrates those who write maps, less often those who first knew the land without needing them. As years passed, the great hidden ports slowly grew quieter. Not abandoned, simply less necessary. Merchant shipping became better protected. Naval patrols more frequent. Colonial government stronger. The scattered survivors of the Golden Age either retired, accepted pardons, changed professions, or disappeared beneath the waves. A few became respectable merchants. Some became fishermen. Others simply vanished into history, their names surviving only in faded court records or weathered gravestones. The harbors remained. Nature always outlives its visitors. Even today, divers exploring shallow Caribbean waters occasionally discover forgotten anchors resting peacefully beneath coral. Rusting cannon partly buried beneath white sand. Broken bottles, clay pipes, fragments of pottery, old ballast stones. These are rarely spectacular discoveries. History seldom leaves behind dramatic souvenirs. Instead, it scatters small reminders. Tiny whispers from another century. A nail, a musket ball, a cracked plate. Enough to remind us that ordinary people once stood exactly where gentle waves now roll ashore. The romance of pirate havens often tempts us to imagine endless adventure. Reality included loneliness, mosquitoes, rotting food, storm damage, infection, homesickness, fear, months without seeing family, constant uncertainty. The hidden ports were sanctuaries. They were never paradise. Yet perhaps that is precisely why they continue capturing our imagination. Because for a brief moment in history, scattered across these warm Caribbean waters, ordinary sailors attempted something extraordinary. They built communities beyond the reach of distant kings. They created homes in places the world overlooked. They found freedom where maps showed only empty islands. It could not last. Nothing built upon violence and uncertainty ever truly does. But while it lasted, the hidden ports of the Caribbean became some of the most remarkable places the Atlantic world had ever known. And as the sun slowly sinks beyond another endless horizon, turning the sea to liquid gold, only one chapter remains. Not the story of pirates, not the story of empires, but the story of memory itself. How forgotten harbors became immortal legends. And why, 3 centuries later, we still find ourselves listening for the echo of distant sails beyond the reef. Why we never stop dreaming about pirate havens. The Caribbean is asleep once more. The waves arrive exactly as they did 300 years ago. They roll gently across coral reefs older than civilization itself. They brush against quiet beaches where sea grapes grow in tangled clusters. They slip silently through narrow mangrove channels that once concealed entire fleets of desperate men. If you listen carefully, there is almost no sound at all. Just the tide, the whisper of wind through palm leaves. And somewhere far offshore, the distant call of a seabird returning home before darkness settles completely. The pirates are gone. The harbors remain. And somehow, the story never ended. Perhaps that is the strangest part of all. History is full of forgotten places. Thousands of Roman forts have vanished into farmland. Medieval villages disappeared beneath forests. Ancient caravan routes faded into deserts. Entire civilizations have been swallowed by jungle or buried beneath modern cities. Yet pirate havens continue living inside our imagination. Ask almost anyone to picture a pirate. The image appears instantly. A black flag snapping in the wind. A weather-beaten captain standing beside the wheel. A lonely tropical island. Hidden coves. Palm trees bending over white sand. Somewhere nearby. Treasure. Even if none exists. Especially if none exists. Why? Why do these places refuse to disappear? Part of the answer lies in something surprisingly human. Pirate havens represented escape. Not simply from governments. From ordinary life. Most sailors in the 17th century possessed almost no control over their futures. Merchant captains ordered them about. Naval officers punished them harshly. Kings declared wars without asking whether anyone wished to fight. Poverty trapped families for generations. Choices remained painfully limited. Then, for a brief moment, the Caribbean seemed to offer another path. Dangerous, violent, often short, but different. A man who had spent years receiving orders suddenly possessed a vote aboard his own ship. A runaway servant might reinvent himself beneath another name. A sailor born into poverty might briefly command his own destiny. The promise proved irresistible. Reality, of course, proved considerably harsher. Freedom came wrapped inside endless uncertainty. Storms, disease, violence, execution. The hidden ports offered refuge. Never safety. Still, dreams rarely concern themselves with practical details. Adventure stories certainly did not. Long after the Golden Age ended, writers rediscovered piracy. In the 19th century, readers devoured tales of mysterious islands and forgotten treasure. The Caribbean became a landscape of imagination. Children grew up believing every deserted beach concealed buried gold. Every old map hid secret clues. Every cave contained skeletons guarding unimaginable riches. Reality quietly smiled from the background. The actual pirates would probably have laughed, then spent the treasure on food before anyone had the chance to bury it. Books transformed history into myth. Paintings followed, then theater, then cinema. Every generation reshaped pirates according to its own hopes. Victorian readers admired adventure. 20th century audiences loved swashbuckling heroes. Modern films often celebrate rebels challenging corrupt empires. The pirates themselves remained strangely adaptable. Like the sea, they fit whatever story people most wish to tell. Even language preserves their memory. Walk the plank. Pieces of eight. Jolly Roger. Shiver me timbers. Some phrases emerged from genuine maritime traditions. Others grew from novels and stage plays. Eventually, almost no one remembered which belonged to history and which belonged to fiction. Perhaps that distinction matters less than we imagine. Stories possess their own kind of truth. Not factual truth. Emotional truth. They reveal what people hoped, feared, admired. Pirate legends endure because they speak about freedom. And freedom has always fascinated humanity. Ironically, the hidden ports themselves rarely looked especially romantic. Imagine arriving after weeks at sea. The harbor smells of damp timber, fish, wood smoke, sweat, tar. Mosquitoes rise from nearby marshes with astonishing enthusiasm. Fresh water tastes wonderful. Fresh fruit disappears almost immediately. Sailors rush toward taverns not because they seek poetry, but because they desperately need a bath. History often smells considerably less glamorous than memory. The people living in these communities understood this perfectly. A blacksmith repairing anchors thought about iron, not legend. A woman baking bread before sunrise worried about flour supplies, not immortality. Children chased chickens through muddy streets without realizing future generations would someday imagine their hometown as a paradise of adventure. Ordinary lives create extraordinary history, usually without noticing. Archaeologists continue uncovering traces of these forgotten worlds. Broken clay pipes, glass bottles, buttons, musket balls, fragments of pottery, animal bones discarded after evening meals. None appear particularly dramatic inside museum displays. Together, however, they tell remarkably intimate stories. Someone cooked here. Someone laughed here. Someone repaired a torn sail here. Someone watched a sunset believing tomorrow would resemble today. History becomes surprisingly personal through ordinary objects. One cracked drinking cup can sometimes say more than an entire royal proclamation. Modern divers occasionally discover shipwrecks resting peacefully beneath Caribbean waters. Coral slowly blankets forgotten cannons. Sea fans wave gently from collapsed hulls. Bright tropical fish swim through cabins once occupied by frightened sailors. Nature possesses extraordinary patience. Given enough time, everything becomes part of the reef. The sea keeps no favorites. Merchant ships, pirate vessels, naval frigates. Eventually, all surrender to salt water. Perhaps there is comfort in that. The Caribbean also reminds us how fragile communities truly are. Nassau flourished because circumstances aligned perfectly. War ended. Sailors became unemployed. Trade expanded. Governments remained distracted. Geography offered protection. For roughly 20 years, everything worked. Then circumstances changed. Empires adapted. Navies organized. Markets shifted. The Republic vanished. Not because people stopped believing in it. Because history kept moving. No community remains frozen forever. Even today, many Caribbean islands preserve subtle reminders of those years. Old fortifications overlook peaceful harbors now filled with yachts instead of pirate sloops. Historic streets follow pathways first worn smooth by sailors carrying barrels of fresh water. Place names quietly preserve forgotten anchorages. Tourists photograph beautiful beaches without realizing they stand where pirate lookouts once scanned distant horizons through brass spyglasses. The landscape remembers, even when we do not. And perhaps that is why the hidden ports continue whispering to us across 3 centuries. Not because they promise buried treasure, not because they celebrate violence, but because they remind us of something deeply human. The desire to begin again, to sail beyond the horizon, to believe there might exist some distant place where old mistakes lose their power. Pirates searched for that place. Many never found it. Some believed they had. History suggests they discovered only temporary shelters. Yet sometimes temporary hope proves powerful enough. As night deepens over the Caribbean, stars slowly appear above the quiet sea. Exactly as they did for Henry Morgan. For Blackbeard. For Bonny. For anonymous fishermen whose names have long since vanished. For frightened merchant sailors praying storms would pass. For runaway servants dreaming of another life. The constellations remain wonderfully indifferent. They shine equally upon emperors and outlaws. Upon governors and pirates. Upon victory and defeat. The sea below reflects every one of them without judgment. And somewhere beyond the darkness, hidden behind reefs and mangrove forests, the old pirate havens still sleep. Not waiting for ships. Not waiting for treasure hunters. Simply waiting for the tide. As they always have. As they always will. In our final chapter, we will leave the Caribbean behind one last time and quietly reflect on what these forgotten ports ultimately meant, not only to history, but to all those who searched for freedom on an endless sea. The last tide. The night is almost over. Somewhere beyond the eastern horizon, dawn is patiently waiting. The stars still hang above the Caribbean, scattered across the sky like countless tiny lanterns, but their light is beginning to soften. Soon the first pale glow will appear over the sea. For now, everything is quiet. The water barely moves. The wind has almost disappeared. Even the waves seem reluctant to disturb the silence. If you had sailed these waters 300 years ago, this would have been the hour when the night watch grew tired. A sailor would lean against the rail, rubbing salt from weary eyes. Another might quietly adjust a loose rope. Someone below deck would already be preparing breakfast, usually something that inspired little excitement but considerable gratitude. Above them, the stars guided the ship. Ahead, only darkness and possibility. Throughout this long journey together, we have visited hidden harbors scattered across the Caribbean. We have walked the muddy streets of Nassau before sunrise. We have stood inside smoky taverns where merchants quietly purchase stolen sugar while pretending not to ask inconvenient questions. We have watched blacksmiths repair anchors beneath showers of sparks. We have listened to storytellers whose rumors crossed oceans faster than official letters. We have sailed beside pirates, fishermen, runaway servants, merchants, governors, surgeons, carpenters, washerwomen, and children who never imagined that history would someday remember the places they simply called home. Because that is what pirate havens truly were. Homes. Not perfect homes. Certainly not peaceful homes. But places where people attempted to build ordinary lives inside extraordinary circumstances. History often reduces piracy to battles, to treasure, to famous names. Blackbeard, Henry Morgan, Charles Vane, and Bonny, Mary Red, Calico Jack. Yet those famous figures represented only a tiny fraction of the people who passed through these ports. Most never became legends. Most left behind no famous portraits, no dramatic last words, no mysterious treasure maps. Instead, they repaired sails, cooked meals, raised children, carried water, caught fish, swept tavern floors, hammered nails into ship planks beneath an unforgiving tropical sun. History belongs just as much to them, perhaps even more. The great empires believed they controlled the Caribbean. Spain claimed it. Britain governed it. France fought over it. The Netherlands traded through it. Maps filled with colorful borders suggested certainty. Reality looked rather different. Out on the water, the sea ignored every border. Trade winds blew without passports. Currents carried ships wherever physics demanded. A pirate fleeing one empire simply crossed into another. The ocean refused to cooperate with politics. That refusal shaped an entire century. The hidden ports existed because geography allowed them to exist. Shallow reefs frustrated massive warships. Tiny islands offered concealment. Mangrove forests hid narrow channels invisible from open water. Freshwater springs quietly sustained crews who otherwise would have perished. Nature became the greatest architect of the pirate republic. Without coral reefs, no Nassau. Without countless isolated islands, no Caribbean piracy as we know it. Sometimes history turns not upon kings, but upon limestone. There is a certain irony in how the Golden Age ended. Not with one decisive battle, not through a single brilliant naval campaign, but slowly, almost quietly. A pardon here, a captured ship there, a governor rebuilding a neglected fort, a merchant deciding stolen cargo had become too risky, a sailor accepting honest wages instead of uncertain prize money. History often fades away through countless ordinary decisions rather than dramatic moments. Even Blackbeard's death, spectacular as it seemed, marked only one chapter in a much larger transformation. By the time he fell at Ocracoke, the age itself was already ending. The tide had already turned. It simply required time for everyone else to notice. That seems fitting somehow. The sea itself teaches patience. Tides arrive gradually, then all at once. One wave changes little. 10,000 reshape coastlines. Pirate havens disappeared the same way. Not overnight, but inevitably. Today, millions of visitors travel through the Caribbean every year. Cruise ships glide into Nassau carrying travelers instead of privateers. Luxury yachts anchor where battered pirate sloops once sought shelter. The waterfront is filled with restaurants, music, and brightly painted buildings. Children still laugh along the beaches. Fishing boats still leave before dawn. The smell of salt still drifts through warm evening air. Life continues. Different, yet strangely familiar. If you wander away from the busiest streets, past the modern hotels, beyond the crowded marinas, you can still find quiet places. Old stone walls softened by moss. Forgotten batteries overlooking turquoise water. Lonely coves where mangroves lean out over silent channels. There, if only for a moment, the centuries become surprisingly thin. Not because ghosts appear, because landscapes possess remarkable memory. The wind still follows the same valleys. The tides still flood the same creeks. The reefs still guard the same entrances. Nature has been patiently preserving the stage long after the actors departed. And perhaps that is why these stories still matter. Not because piracy deserves celebration. The reality was often cruel. Merchant sailors lost everything. Families mourned loved ones who never returned. Violence haunted nearly every voyage. Many pirates themselves died young, far from home, beneath anonymous skies. There was little romance and infection, or hunger, or hanging from a gallows as a warning to others. We should remember that. Yet history is rarely valuable because it offers heroes. It is valuable because it reveals people. Flawed, hopeful, desperate, creative, contradictory. The pirates of the Caribbean were all of those things. Some sought wealth. Some sought revenge. Some simply sought another chance after ordinary society had left no place for them. Their hidden ports became experiments. Brief, imperfect experiments in building communities beyond traditional authority. They failed, but for a short while, they existed, and existence alone changed history. Trade routes shifted, empires adapted, navies modernized, insurance companies transformed maritime commerce. Colonial governments became stronger. Even ideas about leadership, cooperation, and life at sea quietly evolved. The pirate republic vanished. Its influence did not. Perhaps the greatest treasure these havens ever produced was never gold at all. It was stories. Stories passed from one sailor to another beneath lantern light. Stories carried across oceans. Stories written into books centuries later. Stories retold beside campfires, inside classrooms, across documentaries. And now, in the quiet hours before sleep, because stories survive in ways that ships cannot. Wood rots, iron rusts, maps fade, empires collapse. But a good story simply finds another listener. Tonight, you became one of them. Somewhere beneath these same stars, 3 centuries ago, an old sailor may have finished his watch exactly as ours ends now. He might have looked toward a dark shoreline hidden behind palms. He might have wondered whether tomorrow would bring fortune or disaster. He could not possibly have imagined that hundreds of years later, people across the world would still speak of Nassau, of Tortuga, of forgotten anchorages hidden among reefs, of companions long returned to the sea. Yet here we are, still listening, still imagining, still following black sails across moonlit water. The dawn is arriving now. The first birds are beginning to sing from distant mangrove trees. The stars slowly disappear into the growing light. Another day begins over the Caribbean. The hidden ports remain where they have always been. The reefs still wait beneath clear blue water. The tide continues its endless journey. And somewhere, just beyond the horizon where sea and sky become impossible to separate, history quietly drifts into legend. Legend gently becomes memory. And memory, carried by the whisper of the waves, sails onward forever. Thank you for sailing through the hidden pirate havens of the Caribbean. Sleep well. The sea will keep the rest of the story until morning. End of documentary.